Hey guys, welcome to a surprise spoilercast slash sidecast of 4PlayerAnimecast. This is the 9th of October, and we are here with you today. Again, I am your host, Spire, and here with me are my compatriots Near,
Hello.
Toast,
I love Edgerunners.
and Dark.
Oh, dude, me too.
Yeah, and as
Let
you
me tell
guys
you.
might have guessed, yeah, as you guys might have guessed, is fucking dark. But as you guys might have guessed, the side cast is to talk about the new hotness in town, Cyberpunk Edgerunner, the new anime created or headed. The production is headed by Trigger. I believe most of how many side contractors did they have? They had a decent number of subcontractors, but I believe most of it was done, but most of it was headed by Trigger. 3D CG a little bit by Graphinica, pretty well known for their 3D focus, and yeah, so s- um, it's based off the game Cyberpunk, and if you guys don't mind, I'll just read off the plot summary real quick here. David Martinez is a debt is a debt-ridden teenage dropout who teams up with a mercenary gang of cyberpunks called Edgerunners. He's able to use cyberware that would otherwise cause others to go crazy. So, like obviously in the cyberpunk setting, the more implants you have, like you can use implants and do stuff to become more powerful. But the more you use them, the higher risk you have of becoming crazy or of going crazy. David and his
Okay,
fellow Edgerunners take on illicit jobs in an alternate future world that has everything going against them. Yeah, alternate. That's as David climbs the underground ranks, events happen that takes these Edgerunners through love, death, secrets, betrayal, and right to the edge. To the powerful corporate elites that look down upon everyone with twisted, deadly vengeance. So yeah, this is a 10 episode. It says ONA on ANN, but it's just like a 10 episode general series released by Netflix. That is so the entire season has ended, and we're kind of all gathered here about to talk about it right now. Again, there has been a huge amount of hype around this series, as well as a lot of talk in general. So I guess let's just start off. Do you guys just want to go over the general kind of impressions and like the first thoughts that you got going into it beforehand? Like before you got sort of real knee deep into the series, just like general idea about it. I don't know, any comments about audio visual, so on. Dark, you want to start us off?
so like, what do you mean by you want to go through like the whole like roller coaster, essentially like overview, or do you want to just be like, because I thought the audio visuals were great. Going
Okay.
into it, I started off really enjoying it because of that primarily. So,
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
thought
I
it had a
mean,
really, I liked the soundtrack, and I thought the animation was
yeah, the
slick.
soundtrack was
Like,
really good.
and yeah, I think
Okay.
like as far as like visual audio visuals go, like I had really no complaints in general. I thought they did
Mhm.
some cool stuff.
Right.
I thought the character designs were nice. Uh, and yeah, I thought the actual like visual directing was quite nice too. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in terms of what were you talking about when you meant the roller coaster, the roller coaster experience? If you want to just get straight on to the, just talk about the series in general, then.
I mean, yeah, so for me it's like I started out really enjoying it because I think the first few episodes were really solid.
Mhm.
And then without getting
What
too
can you
into
specify
detail.
what you mean the first few episodes? Do you mean
Okay,
like up to
so I
episode
think like
4, or like what are you talking about?
yeah, I think it was to get into
Because
spoilers already.
episode six is
Which
the first
was
half, and then
which was
7 onwards is
episode
a time skip.
yeah, but which was the episode where oh fuck, what is his name? Was it Pilaf? Is that his name?
Pillar
Rebecca's
Three?
got killed.
brother?
Yeah.
Yeah. What
Tyler
was the
got
episode where
killed.
he got killed in?
It's
3?
like episode
Um,
3, dude.
Yeah, so
yeah,
episode
episode
4
3.
was where I was like, wait a minute. What's going on? Like,
Wait a minute,
okay.
people die in this series?
No, it was, wait a minute. What the fuck are they gonna like? Story are they about to tell? Like, is this
I
not gonna be like? I guess this is not gonna be Odd Jobs, huh?
well, okay,
It
okay.
Um,
Can we
but
is
then
it
I think this,
also, what happened
you're right.
was, all I'll say is, stepping off of that, what happened was, it was kind of like as time went on, and like his death literally didn't do fucking anything in the entire series. Like, once episode 4 went on, then like 5, I was like, oh, so that was like nothing. Like, this isn't
Yeah,
going to be a
so
series
I
like we're
think
going to have any fucking dwelling on that. Also,
yeah.
Rebecca's literally gone for
I
some
mean,
reason.
I
The
got that
character that
I
should
got
be
that
on the
impression.
screen.
I got that impression in episode 1. Like,
Well, okay, so I think this
I
is
thought
a
episode
good
1,
way to
like, I thought
frame.
that was just going to be a jumping off point, like with the
So
mom
so I think
thing.
this is a good sort of framing to have, or to kind of I guess if I were to ask an alternate question, then let's just start off with this baseline then. Or I want to kind of go from the bottom up in terms of like foundation, like how we want to analyze this or how we want to kind of talk about this. But do you think coming in, like with the cyberpunk writers coming in, with the trigger people coming in, the writers all they're brainstorming. Do you think what was sort of their purpose behind writing this anime in general? Do you think it was kind of just to have like a fun romp, or do you think they were trying to prioritize, pushing their themes a little bit more, or were the trigger people kind of trying to just run their formula, but with cyberpunk? Like, what do you think was going on in general? Like, what were they trying to aim for? Do you think the themes were like a or any themes that might arise? And again, we could talk about the themes in a bit. But do you think those were a priority, or do you think it was more just like, yeah, trigger stuff, but like with darker cyberpunk, or like what do you think was going
Yeah,
on
I mean, I
in
think it was that.
your
Like,
arc?
if you're asking me, I
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
it
What
was the
about you?
latter. But
Because I know you're also one of the not so much trigger people.
um, so this was um this was written by one of like the cyberpunk like writers, right? Like it was.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was hand in hand, right?
Yeah, so I don't know. So for me, my opinion is kind of like split on like what exactly Trigger did and what like CDPR kind of did, because I genuinely think there was like like actual
Do you think there was
real. I
conflict?
think
Do you
there
think the
was
problem
real.
was?
I think there was real genuine studio interference with the series.
Okay, okay.
So I'll just put that out there right now. But in terms of like what like Trigger wanted to do,
Hmm.
I think what Trigger wanted to do is largely in the first half. Um, and I think they, for the most part, considering they had 6 fucking episodes to do that, I think they did it relatively well. Obviously, there's some huge fucking hurdles that they tripped over.
Hmm.
But in terms of like what Trigger wanted to do, I do think they wanted to tell, a darker story. Because the cyberpunk world is pretty fucking dark, right? It's pretty grim.
So you think that they wanted? I mean, I guess that's why they accepted it in the first place, plus the money. But it's like, do you think it was just more of just a natural? Oh, because it's cyberpunk and it's like this is the game. Like it's just going to be darker. Like that was the general kind of idea.
Yeah, I mean,
But then it
I
also
think
has
the
like robot
setting,
explosions.
I think the setting initially, you know, wanted to like they wanted to tell a darker story, but obviously like it's fucking Trigger, so there's still gonna be explosions and shit, right?
Yes.
And the cyberpunk world lends itself to that, right? Like the violence in the cyberpunk world is the norm, right? Like it's literally
Yes. Yes.
it's not it's not really anything that anybody blinks an eye at. Um,
Hmm.
and so like I think the setting is really right up Trigger's alley, in terms of like them wanting to tell a fucked up story in a very violent world. Um, but yeah, I am of the
But then
opinion.
still use a trigger formula where it's like they rise up, right? It's like they
Yeah,
rise up out of
of
that
course.
in some sense.
Um,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
yeah, I am very of the opinion that there was severe studio interference in the second half.
Mhm. What about you, Toast? Do you think it's like from what you saw? Do you think it's like you get the sense that it was like a general like a fun romp or whatever, or do you think it was more just like a um kind of like they wanted to kind of to have some like importance on the themes, or do you think that there was some sort of like kind of like studio conflict in a sense, throughout the episodes, just like what Nier said?
Yes.
Yeah, yes to all of the above.
No.
Okay, wait, yes to what?
Who wrote the? Who's the script writer? It's some dude.
Yeah, I forget
Uh,
his name, but he is.
It,
Mike
it's
Pondsmith,
mainly
is
two
that
people,
him?
but it's like Otsuka.
No,
Yeah,
no,
Otsuka
no.
Masahiko.
You sure? No,
So
that's not
Otsuka
the.
Masahiko.
That's not the
Mike
name I saw
Pondsmith
in
is
the.
the creator of Cyberpunk. Pretty sure.
Who's the
Yeah,
actual
wasn't the
writer?
writer? The writer was like,
Oh, the
fuck, what was his name?
And what was his name? It's Bartosz I can't even pronounce that guy's name. Yes, that guy.
yeah,
I'm
Bartos.
saying. I think that they had a group of characters that there was the scenario writer was obviously like this is triggered down to a T. It's all the same stuff that we've seen before. They didn't really add anything to the formula, but the characters were Sans Rebecca were made by those guys. I don't know. Are they are they CD Project Red or are they some other people?
Are
I
they
believe they're
CDPR?
CD. Are they?
Okay. I'm
I
not sure.
I
think.
mean, CDPR is directly involved in the production.
I guess. Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, it's them.
Yeah, they produced like they're the sole producer.
Mhm.
Other than and then Netflix is just the licensor, I think, right?
Sure. And as far as storytelling goes, it's pretty average. I mean, I'm not blown away by it. All the twists and turns are obviously expected.
Yeah,
Story
I
beats.
mean, I think you bring up a good point where it's like you could also see it in the way where I mean, this is sort of along the lines of Trigger, us talking about how Trigger is going along with the cyberpunk stuff, but um,
It's still a trigger story set in
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
cyberpunk universe.
What Toast is saying is like they're taking the cyberpunk characters and they're kind of playing Barbie in like a Trigger way. Is sort of how that's going. Yeah, which also do agree with.
And it's like you got your whole cast of crew. It's like you. I'm pretty sure those are cyberpunk classes, aren't they? Like, hey, you got this
Mhm.
guy. I don't know, some hack. You got some hacker chick, and then you got some other chick who surfs the web, and then you got your gun dudes, and then you got your melee dudes, and I'm like, oh, okay.
So
I don't know.
so in terms of so we have this idea of how they might have wanted to form this or how they might have formed this generally. So can we do like a sort of brainstorm of what themes are they actually trying to aim for? So they have the trigger formula. We know that the trigger formula exists, especially in episodes 7 through the end, right? So put that aside. In terms of like just the themes, right? Like any sort of general themes that they might have wanted to mix that in. Well, what do you think they were aiming for mainly?
I love dystopian futures.
Dystopian futures. Okay.
And what's the thing? It's like Night City always wins, so
It's
that's
the whole
why.
like capitalist dystopian, like
Yeah,
everything's
I mean that's
ultimately in the
general.
hands of the corporations and stuff like that, right? And
That's generally
on
like Cyberpunk as a genre. Very,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Plus so cyber capitalist corporation dystopia plus cyberpunk. I mean, naturally integrated into cyberpunk. And I think on top of that, obviously, I think in episode 1 at least, they were trying to add this also idea of like um a little bit lean a little bit into like the class discrimination aspect of capitalist
well,
dystopians,
the
right?
thing is, like episode one leans heavily into, right, like anti-capitalist sort of,
Mhm.
highlighting the uh like class imbalance, right, of the cyberpunk
Mhm.
world, which I think you really have to do in any cyberpunk story. Not even cyberpunk as an IP, but cyberpunk as a genre, right? Cyberpunk as a genre is very heavily like it's just like heavily rooted in like class conflict, the wealth just like lording over pretty much all of the resources available. Um, you know, there are series that are a little bit more, um, I guess, in a more dystopian like scenario, a la like Blade Runner, where like
Well, the
like
the
Blade
thing
Runner
the,
is in more of a like almost like a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk story, whereas Cyberpunk is sort of just a like hyper capitalist take on the genre, right? Where
yeah.
corporations literally run the world, right? Like corporations are governments in and of themselves. And I think to tell a story in that world, you sort of have to initially set up the class conflict, right? Where
Well, I
the
think I think an
poor don't
important
get
thing
shit
has to yeah.
and the rich get, the best treatment possible.
Mhm.
And you sort of have to set up, like, if you're setting up a main character in a world like that, typically, obviously, you want to root for the underdog. So usually the character is from a poor background, right?
Right.
So initially, obviously, you have to set up that class conflict um, by usually the main character either gets something robbed from him and, justice isn't served because the system doesn't suit the poor,
Right,
or
right, right. Two
he
sets of
gets
laws,
he
right?
gets
Yeah.
something wrong. He gets wronged in some way, and the
Yeah.
system essentially betrays him, right? Um, and obviously we do get that in episode one. But I think beyond episode one, it sort of abandons that pretty early on.
They make some
Which
references to it with the continual kind of like the medical insurance kind of stuff, but it's a very like kind of tributary. It's a
Well,
very like
yeah,
tributary
I
like
would say the problem is when they
and then it's
reintroduce
done.
the insurance, it's like from the
Yeah, it's
standpoint
very
of people who
casual.
have it. It's like, but I feel like they also it kind of gets a little shaky because like when they keep mentioning the insurance and the insurance holders, it's usually for someone who's getting fucking torn to pieces in about 30
yeah. So the
seconds.
issue
So
is
it's like,
they
who
set up.
cares?
So they set up.
Yeah.
So the initial setup is now obviously this is fucking spoiler cast, so I'm just gonna spoil shit. In
Yeah.
episode one, the main character's mom dies in a car accident, right? Uh, they get caught in a crossfire of some gang bullshit. His mom dies because she doesn't have good insurance, and when the trauma team arrives, they effectively ignore the main character and his mother. Um, and then so that's the initial setup, right, of the obvious class disparity and
Yes.
like the main character sort of being betrayed by the system, among other things in episode one. But that's sort of the initial like kick, right?
Yeah, it's the call to
Um,
action.
and I think that's a good scene. It's a solid scene. The issue is the only times they ever like reference the trauma team after episode one is as an antagonistic force. It is something that is sort of
Or even the problem I have is not even necessarily with the fact that it's an antagonistic force. It's the fact that the medical stuff is just kind of like almost a comedic shtick. It is so casual where it's like, yeah, okay, by the way, these people are getting screwed, and then like like they're coming in, or they're just saying, oh no, fuck you, like we have to get out, or whatever it is, right? And it's included in a very casual way, right? So I
yeah.
think that's the additional problem with it.
I mean, I think it being a casual thing is fine because again, it is just an aspect of the world, right? It's just an everyday thing where
Yeah.
trauma team just when rich people die, trauma team comes in, tries to save them, right? But the thing is, like, it's not after episode one, it's not used in a sort of like a sense of like look at the class disparity because
It is a
spoilers,
bit hard.
a lot of
It is a
They
fucking
bit hard.
characters,
become
a lot of characters die in this series. A lot
Yes.
of fucking characters die in this series, and the only time trauma team responds to any death in this series, it is the death of character that they are either trying to take alive and he happens to die, and then the trauma team responds, and then they're like, "Aw, shit, that fucks up our plans. We have to get out of here." or it's some other form of hindrance to the main characters where it's like, a character that they didn't want, like they didn't even like expect to die, is like dying on the floor, and then the trauma team comes in and they're like, well, shit, what the fuck do we do, right? Um, it's not really used as a sort of like, oh well, how come he gets to the trauma team, but when our comrades die, there's no response. Like
Yeah.
there's never even a mention of like our main cast of characters, like a lot of them fucking die. And
Mm.
there's never even a single mention of like their insurance or like what the response is for them. And I get that they're fucking cyberpunks and they're largely off the grid, but it's like there's not even a mention of like, oh man, I wish we could have like access to
There's
stuff
not
like
as
that.
much down to earth talk about the themes, right?
Yeah, I
And
mean, to
I
be
do again,
honest, there
yeah.
isn't really a single scene of introspection in this entire fucking series. So
Yeah,
that's also a
I
huge
actually do
detriment.
want to talk about the I do want to talk a little bit more about the specific way the character develops and how the trigger formula worked in tandem or not in tandem a
Yeah.
lot of times with themes. But I do want to kind of finish off brainstorming the themes. But I also think going back to the capitalist stuff, right? I think Cyberpunk, well, first off, with the health insurance thing, you also do have to be a little bit careful because if you hammer too much using the exact same tool, like oh
Yeah, of
capitalist bad,
course.
and then
Yeah.
then it becomes a little bit memey, right? Because then it just becomes something like a social credit score or something like that, right? And it becomes like a very like obvious thing within the series that like oh you're using this hammer, then okay we get it kind of thing, and it becomes very bad very quickly. Um, but I think one other thing that the specific I episode one, the thing that I did like about episode one in particular is that a lot of times when we're talking about doing talk about the themes of capitalism in dystopia, right? In dystopian and cyberpunk settings, is that they're kind of treated in a very I don't want to maybe I don't want to use this adjective, but said in a very crude way. And what I mean by that is that when a series has depictions of the rich and poor, it's just depicted as, oh, I'm the poor guy, but I don't have any power, but I'm gonna get power. I'm gonna screw over the evil rich people. And the rich people are kind of literally just like sitting on the throne sometimes. And they are saying, haha, I have all the power, so screw you. And I think an important aspect that episode one covers is that in specifically in capitalism, the phrase often used is the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, right? And the poor get poorer side is shown very well, I think, in episode one, where it's not just it's when it rains it pours, right? It's not just his mother dying. It's the fact that he has to pay off everything. It's the fact that he couldn't even get the proper treatment. It's that all these stupid things, right? He's getting kicked out of school. Everything bad is happening, right? He's the one that his family is the one that has to deal with this, gang violence while riding this, shoddy car or whatever it is, right? And so I think episode one does a very good job of showing that, that sort of like extra detail to the capitalistic aspect. But yeah, obviously, whether it develops is another is another matter, right?
Yeah.
So there's the capitalistic thing, there's dystopian futures. Anything else? I want to say there was a little bit of like the whole like distrust, loneliness versus like you know what I mean, like sort of,
Yeah, and I
but
mean
that sort of
obviously
goes back to the
there's
trigger theme. Yeah.
there's again the obvious themes of like chasing your dream in a world where dreams are
Mhm.
fucking crushed normally. But
Yeah. What is your own like sort of reachable dream, and do you just
yeah,
want to have an
but
ideal dream or like something that you can reach for or
the issue with
whatever it is, right?
that I feel, which I
Mhm.
think that is like probably the main theme that they're kind of trying to drive home with the first
Mhm.
part, right? Like the
Mhm.
first half. Um, and the issue with that is that theme is not carried at all, not even
It's
for
not
a
extended
it's not
at all.
carried at
Yes.
all for a millisecond by our main
Yes.
fucking character, right? That
Or
theme,
really by most people.
yeah, that theme is carried pretty much solely on the back of Maine, right? And to a lesser extent, Lucy. Um,
Yes. Yes.
And the issue I have with this series' themes is that the main character doesn't really have one. Like, he doesn't really have a drive. He doesn't really have a motivation. He doesn't have a dream. Like, he literally exists. He lives to help other people.
He's a
And
chronicler. He's in terms of like just the story itself. He is a chronicler and the hero that the Deus Ex Machina rolled into one. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Yes.
and they really don't. Again, there isn't really a single scene of introspection in this entire series outside of the like one scene with
Mhm.
Maine at the end of the first half, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I don't know if I'd really call that introspection and more of sort of just like, you know, character development.
Mhm.
But it's like our main character never really states like what he wants in Night City, like what he wants in life outside of, you know, getting Lucy to the moon. And, you know, he states that once, maybe twice, in the entire series. And then outside of that, he's kind of just like getting fucking moodier and moodier until he fucking explodes basically. Like
Yeah.
it's I'm not a
What I
fan
would
of the main
what I
character
would
in
I
this
would
series.
say,
say
yeah.
my other thing. I don't know if we want to touch on it now, but
Mhm.
I would say my biggest gripe with like the themes is that how like shallow the whole like dream idea was carried with like through Lucy especially, where it was like,
Yes, absolutely.
you know, oh, what's your dream? And it's like, well, her dream isn't actually to go to the fucking moon. I don't know why it was still considered that by the end of the series, but from my
Yeah,
understanding, by the episode where they kiss and then it's told
yeah.
that they have sex,
Her
that
dream
her
has
dream is to
changed.
have someone like David.
She
Like,
wants to be with David. Like
yeah,
she
it's
also
like the idea, like when she introduced the moon was literally verbatim said, I just want to get as far away from Night City as possible, which one, the moon isn't. Two, because they have straight fucking flights there. Two, like that I assumed was the stepping point of like, to set up the idea that the distance from Night City is David. Like it's not a physical distance that matters, right? It's to have like someone that's actually like worth something to you in this like horrible setting.
Well, what I think a variant of that I would say is that Lucy initially wanted to just get away from this world where everybody is just dealing with this corporate greed and nobody's really, properly valuing anything and nobody's friends. You can't trust anybody and it's all just stupid. And she just wanted to go to the moon in terms of um as a sort of not, the physical like it's not a I want to go to the Grand Canyon sort of deal. It's more of a I just want to go there so I can have this emotional catharsis of I'm not where all the muck is anymore. I'm not dealing with all these freaking people who are betraying, backstabbing each other left, right, and center, and being greedy and all that. I'm off. I'm done with it. But then the way the story put it is sort of tries to put it is that David becomes um a sort of partner and a solace for her and an innocent thing where she sort of kind of pushes for this in episode 4, right? Where she talks about how David is not cut out to be an edge runner in the sense that he is he's not really prepared to really deal with all of this dark side stuff. He's not really prepared to just cut losses and get the hell out. He's not really prepared to um deal with somebody who he has worked with all this while who suddenly betrays him or something like that, right? he's the hopeful optimist in a dark world. And so Lucy, by partnering up with David, finds solace in that, right? Finds the antithesis of all of the dumb stuff she hates in the city, right? So that sort of the objective changes, I think, in the episode, and that's sort of how the story flows. But then it kind of the themes again kind of get cut off, like in the later episodes, or obviously again in the last one episode, or in the last episode or so. I want to say kind of
I'd
just
say
gets
the
cut
last
off.
4.
Yeah, I mean,
I
7, 8,
really-
9,
I really
10 were
feel-
Yeah,
interesting.
it's just
7, 8, 9,
like-
10 where it's just Trigger coming in and like,
nothing
nope,
happens.
this is Trigger formula.
Like
now.
Yeah,
literally
7.
nothing
So
fucking
like
occurs.
7 onwards is like, I don't know. I don't know how. I really don't want to. I don't know how much I want to get into it this early on. But like to me, 7 onwards is a different story. Like it's a different.
Oh,
It's-
absolutely. It's definitely a different tone. It's a different
Yeah, I
tone.
mean it's a totally different tone. None of the characters even fucking acknowledge what just happened in the first part. Everyone's like the motivations are gone. David is a different fucking character. Like just holy, he's a different character. And all this because of a time skip that isn't like ever disclosed to the viewer, like how long it's been. It's just been a while. And
Well,
like,
I don't know. I guess yeah. The thing is, it's like it's okay if David has like a different bent because of the traumatic things that happened to
I mean,
him.
the issue is we never
the
see
issue-
David go through that. We literally never see
Yeah,
David
we
grapple with
have
loss
no-
a single time. David
Yeah,
loses
so I
his
do want to
mother
talk with that.
in
You
episode
don't see
1,
a character.
and he never
Yeah.
Grapple with
grieves. He
This
never
is important.
grieves once. He literally never
Yes.
grieves for his mother a single time. And
Well,
then
people do deal with grief differently, but I think you're hitting at a very important point that I do want to discuss though, which is
Well, I think
I guess if you're going
I
to
was just
go
gonna-
on to the next theme, and I just want to cover this because it's like very like slight, like it's like I'm just varying the question like a tiny bit, but it's like so we talked a little bit about the types of themes that floated up in the earlier episodes, right? So now we're talking, I think, to the viewers out there, we talk about how they extended these themes or didn't extend these themes, or how sort of Trigger handled this time skip that happened in episode 6 and 7. Because I do think that up to episode 6, before the time skip, there was an interesting build-up, and it's reasonable after the time skip for David to have a slightly a different bent. But it's not reasonable, obviously, for the development, the character development, and the resolution of the themes and everything else to be kind of scuffed. Which is
yeah,
what
it
you're
happens
saying.
off screen.
Yes.
Which is
Yes.
absurd. Like
Yeah.
again, David loses his mother in front of his very eyes in episode 1. And then within episode 1, he takes his mother to the hospital. He's told, she had a successful surgery and she'll probably make it. And then the day after, he's told she's dead and you have to deal with that now. And he kind of just takes that at face value. And within episode 1, it's like, okay, everything is going wrong in his life. I get like it's understandable that he's sort of just kind
In
of
days.
he's taking it like head on, and it's kind of just it's like not even registering, right?
Yeah.
Which is
He's in a daze.
it's something that happens to people when a lot of fucking shit goes wrong really fast.
Yes.
Like you kind of
Yes.
don't even realize what's happening until way later. But beyond episode 1, David barely even fucking acknowledges his mother, right? And the only times he really references to her beyond episode 1 is like when he first meets Maine, and like they establish that Maine was in contact with David's mother beforehand, and then like in episode 8 when he kills that lady who has a son, and it's
Yeah.
like
When he's going into the psychosis.
yeah, like he never fucking really grieves at all, right? Like there's a couple scenes where he looks at her like her jar of
Right.
ashes, but that's it, right? Like he never really we never see this character go through loss. And then in episode 6, you know, Main, who is like effectively his like his role model, right? He's like his
Yes.
new it's his new like pillar, and Main dies. And then in episode 7, there's a fucking time skip. And so we don't see any of that emotional impact on our main character. The most impact we see on David for Main's death is fucking like 3 frames where he looks into the camera and he looks really sad, right? If that's it. That's literally all we see. And it's like we barely get any sort of like, introspection on what
References what happens
like
to
what
me.
this character's
Or
death like means to David, like what he like carrying on his legacy like means to David. Like what does that mean to our main fucking character? And we don't ever get that. It's literally just
well,
okay,
he
time
makes
skip.
a passing reference to it when he's talking with Lucy way later, right? It's like I have to do this. I have to do all this because of my mom and Maine, right? But it's a very
Yeah, but the problem is that they use the way this whole series uses character deaths is literally as plot points. Like it's
yes,
time to
absolutely.
we need to move the plot forward. Like why did Pilov die? To literally set up David getting Maine's arm. That's it. Because
Yes,
his
yes,
arms
yes.
don't mean anything anymore. Rebecca doesn't use them.
Yeah.
Rebecca doesn't get them.
Or to
Fucking
set up
David. No
set up
one.
the
It's
fact
just
this yeah
that they take
I,
each other's like Augs when they're gone. Like that is
yeah
all he died. That was the only
well
reason
I think
that really they
the
needed to do that.
Yeah, Pillar is also sort of to go along with that, to add a little bit onto that. It's like he's supposed to be the cracks in the foundation,
Healer,
right? He's supposed to be the first signs, the canary in the coal mine kind of business, right? Where it's like, oh shit, like stuff can actually break down at all moment, right? Because they had the peak, they had not the peak, but they had the whole thing in the episodes prior to that, or the couple of episodes prior, where it's like everything was going well. He was
Yeah, you
macking with,
mean one montage in one
yeah,
episode
yeah,
prior?
all
I think
the
that's what
yeah,
you
the
mean.
montage where it's
Is
like
there's a
he
signal
he was
montage
learning
where
all the
everything's going
skills.
well.
Yeah, the Rocky montage, right? Where he was like
Yeah.
running and doing like learning all the skill sets and everything was going good, and he was like macking with Lucy, and it's like chugging some beers with friends, and everything was going well. And then again, as you said, Pillar is the cracks in the foundation in the movie, telling you, "Oh no, shit's about to go down," kind of thing. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and so
very.
like that was my biggest gripe that like they had that happen, and then the character
Mhm.
who should have a modicum of fucking like reaction and development and introspection, Rebecca, vanishes until the fucking time skip with really no explanation whatsoever. Like,
Well,
like
wasn't the explanation like, did they ever say something like, oh, because Pillar died, like Rebecca
No.
has to be
I
out
don't
or
think
something?
so.
They didn't
I'm
say that,
pretty
No.
yeah.
sure she's just
Okay.
gone.
They
The
don't
last
no.
mention of her
They
is,
don't
oh, she
acknowledge
said
it.
you could take his arms, by the way, and David goes, no, those are a
Okay,
techie's arms.
I
That's
thought she
it.
was in like mourning or something like that. I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, it kind of reminds me a lot of, or I kind of always say this when series start just killing off everybody except for the main two, right? Left, right, and center. But the series that I get reminded of is Akame ga Kill, and people might know what I'm talking about, like when I say this. And when I saw Akame ga Kill for the first time, I
Anime or
mentioned
manga
that.
spy? There's a
I mean, I'm
difference.
not talking about the ending. I'm not talking about the ending, so it's not really.
All right, fair.
Maybe the manga, but again, the general concept doesn't involve the ending. So the idea behind Akame ga Kill, and I mentioned this when I was reviewing the anime when it was live, was that the author treated his cast like a bonsai tree, right? He's cutting away all of like the stuff except for like specifically the stuff that won't like completely derail the plot. Everything else is like disposable. So all the characters are just like, oh, trim, 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 trim. You die, you die, you die, you die, and until the very like core center like stuff, the bonsai tree that he wants is left, right? And which in this case is like essentially just Lucy, David, and like whoever is needed to drive their car, right? Essentially,
Yeah.
right? So It's very similar to that series in a sense, and I heartily agree with Dark in that I hate that sort of. I hate it when a cast is dealt like that because it implies, or I mean, it's obvious the characters are used to drive the plot, but it implies, or it makes too obvious that the characters are too. How do I say this? The plot has the precedence over the characters being living, quote unquote, living, breathing creatures in the world, right? And what that creates oftentimes is a plot that is much more railroaded and artificial and just like going from point A to point B to point C than something that was made or something that looks like it's made from the characters' interactions with each other, or the characters' personalities, or the characters' history, or the fact that the characters are in this gang and they're kind of often doing things. And it doesn't seem as organic, right? So that's the problem with that sort of writing style. But in terms of how do I say this? I kind of agree with again I agree with pretty much all the things that like Near and Dark just said, but it's also the fact that it's very unfortunate because I think again what happened at the beginning of episode 1, what happened with episode 6 where Main kind of showed, the process of cyber psychosis, and he's dealing with the side effects of psychosis, the not just side effects, but terminal side effects, right? He knows he's gonna get fucked if he goes further, and even if he doesn't go further, he has, you know, essentially a terminal illness, right? At this point, and it's kind of reminiscent of something like steroids in real life, right? And I think it was a very cool way that they or they kind of managed to slightly pack it up in a shorter time frame. But then the issue becomes, okay, well, this is the bad example, right? This is the stereotypical like, oh, something bad happened to a good person, a good man, and now what does David do with this information, right? Um, does he go down the same road and this turn into sort of like a bad ending or like a bittersweet ending? Or does it become a sort of like, no, I'm not going to go down that same path. I'm not going to do this. Um, while and kind of create his own fate, right? He'll maybe live as like a terminal cripple, but he's no longer under the effects of cyberpsychosis. I think that would have been a cool thing to add into it, right? But then not only was that sort of not really resolved in a proper organic manner, which would have been again cool, right? Because it's like again in real life, right? The struggle with steroids or like looking like body dysmorphia, right? Um, being larger and more buff when you're on these like PEDs and stuff like that, but then like looking thinner, and so you have this like oh I can't deal with myself when you're weaker, stuff like that. That sort of like mentality and that sort of like discussion is something that could have been added into something like this. But then on top of that, not only did they not do that, but on top of that, they kind of decreased or simplified or kind of ignore the general idea of the capitalist dystopia, the rich poor kind of stuff, and just kind of made it a shootout right between between everybody. And um the themes that came into a climax in episode 6, right, where they were talking about, it's like, Miltech is at the end fighting with Arasaka, and it's just corporations at the top. Everything here is controlled by corporations, and you're just an ant. You are just a cog in the machine.
Yeah.
You think you're so cool, you're changing stuff. You are nothing. At the end of the day, everything leads to Rome. Everything leads back to a corporation. Boom, boom, boom. And everything, in my opinion, I think episode 6 was the best episode of the entire series.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and everything came to a head, and then they didn't extend it. Not only
Yeah.
they
do
not
nothing
only
with it.
did not resolve it, they didn't extend it. They even reduced the frequency of these themes occurring. Again, what Nier and Dark and Toast are all saying, right? And not only did they do that, but then they started you know how so there are loose ends, right? There are obvious sort of questions in the end of episode 6, right? It's like, okay, so we know that all these corporations are just running on it. How is David and Lucy and Kiwi and all the others just going to deal with this? How is David going to deal with the idea that he probably might go psychotic? He might contact cyberpsychosis. Does he think he's special? No, he's going to get the effects as well. And how is he going to deal with it? How is he going to deal with the fact that he has a ticking time bomb on attached to his spine, while he has to deal with the fact that he has to think about what he wants to do for Lucy and what he feels like he has to give towards his dead mother and Maine and stuff like that, right? He has all these themes going on, but then these open ends, right? These open end questions are then resolved, quote unquote, many quotes, right? Many quote unquote. They are resolved by being plugged back into the trigger formula, in which he suddenly becomes the standard stereotypical trigger hero, the end of all worlds, right? I am the end
Yeah.
world, right? I am
I
the
am the
destroyer of
fucking
worlds, right?
strong.
Oppenheim,
Yeah.
um, and he starts just wrecking everything and just destroying all the enemies, and then goes out of one big blaze like the awesome trigger hero. I'm gonna pierce the heavens with my cyber skeleton and help
Yeah,
Lucy
never mind
get
the
to the
fact that
moon.
I'm
And
also gonna get all my friends killed.
yeah, exactly. Like
Anyway,
everybody's gonna die, but
don't think
Lucy's
about
gonna get
that
to the
though.
moon, baby, and like all this stuff. And that was the most unfortunate part of this series, which I want to say, I do want to say that it's just like at least 20% of that, 30% of that is because it is ultimately a 10 episode series, right? Because you can only juggle like capitalists and like the idea of distrust plus goals and the idea of like, terminal illnesses and stuff like that. Like you can only deal with all of that so well in 10 episodes, right?
Yeah.
But that being said, the rest, the 80-70% of the fault, I think is definitely at the hands of um multiple people within the production community or the production committee within the sort of directors like group, director writing group, right? Um, saying, okay, let's take these themes, let's take the build up that we've had up until episode 6 and plug that and all those problems that we've built up, the cathartic, the potential, like the emotional bomb, right? The emotional Gordian knot that we've created up until episode 6. Let's resolve that by plugging that into the overly simplified trigger formula. And it is overly simplified. You can see it. You can feel it, right? Because it's episode 6. All these things are coming together. And then how does it get solved? Oh, he just rises and the skeleton blows up everybody. And
I
Lucy
mean,
goes
I
to
think
the moon.
I think the real issue is like they don't resolve anything, right? They barely even
Yeah,
acknowledge.
I say that's why I put in quotes. The
Yeah,
resolve
I
is in
mean, it's
quotes,
like,
right? They try to resolve it
but
by
it's
plugging it into the trigger
I don't
formula.
even know if they are attempting to resolve any of like the themes that they've set up. Like I
Well, they
genuinely
have to
think
because it's like the
I genuinely think
series
they
is ending.
fucking forgot. Like they legitimately fucking
They're like
forgot.
thieves. What is that?
Well, yeah, because
Yeah,
again, it's
like
like in the second half, it's like how do you have this end with fucking Lucy going to the moon and never making any mention in the second half of like I don't actually fucking care about the moon. Like it was never
Right.
Yeah,
really about the moon.
I don't care about the moon. I care about you, David. And it's like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
literally
And it's
never
like
have.
instead she's just moping around for 2 episodes until she gets kidnapped. It's like
Yeah, like
oh,
she's like
okay.
doing like shit in the background. She never tells David about it for whatever reason. I don't know fucking why. Like, and then it's like literally every conversation that Lucy and David have in the second half is like you could literally like solve this. Like you could solve this in a single conversation, and they don't. And it's never really like it's not even like like there's no reason for it either. Like there's really no reason for the secrecy, right? And David is David, so he just trusts Lucy for whatever the fuck she says. And then Lucy kind of just like essentially through her like Lucy's inaction and inability to essentially tell David that like you don't need to fucking kill yourself to get me to the moon. Like, I only care about you being alive, which she says to him directly in like episodes 5 and 6. And then, you know, I really thought they were going to go somewhere where, like, you know, despite Lucy's wishes, which David said he was going to, you know, like, that was his everything. Like, that is what he was dedicating himself to. Despite Lucy's wishes, David went off to save Maine, right? Like, he essentially betrayed Lucy's wishes in episode 6, and he went off to save Maine. And I really thought that was going to be a legitimate plot point. But again, they don't fucking acknowledge it a single time.
Because the
And
focus then becomes on Lucy doing the dives afterwards, right? Or
yeah,
whatever.
and it's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I really don't understand why Lucy was like, I have to do this without telling David, you know.
My question
She
is,
can't
so
tell David that she's protecting him at all for whatever reason. David, like, for whatever reason, even after seeing Maine go through the exact same thing that he's literally doing, like, David doesn't have the fucking self-awareness to be like, huh, I'm literally doing what Maine did to me to Lucy, right? Like, there's no introspection at all. There's no moment of clarity where characters are like we're fucking up, like we're doing something wrong here, right? And instead they just create conflict where it's like, oh, what if characters started betraying one another, huh? What if they
What
started
if
getting
Faraday
framed?
just left for some reason?
Yeah, what if Faraday just like fucked off for no
What was he
reason?
like? What? Yeah, and it's just like, which begs the question: why? What was the point? Like, what? Like, okay.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
like,
What was the job? What was even the job that Bane was trying to do?
yeah,
Like, I mean, I know, but it's just like at that point, it's like this kind of devalues the entire first part of the show. Okay.
my question is, it's like, so from what I kind of, the way I compartmentalize it in my head, right? It's like we have these sorts of general or more specific themes that are a little bit removed from like very like big like hope, distrust, whatever stuff, right? And it's like those themes are just the specific themes again are just dealing again. How do you want to deal with the side effects if you want to really push yourself further while dealing with the fact that because you screwed around too much, you might end up with terminal illness again, steroids, right? You have to deal with the corporation stuff. You have to deal with the that adding on to the capitalism plus class discrimination stuff, right? And then on the other hand, you have the more general themes, right? You have the distrust, the what are your goals, the I want to find solace. I want to find solace in you, right? I love you. You need to stay a good person and not just, drive yourself into insanity, right? Go into cyberpsychosis or whatever. You need to remain the light, the hopeful optimist, right? In the dark world, instead of leaving me here in the middle of this muck, in the middle of this lonely world where everybody's just shit or dead, right? And so there are these larger themes and there are these smaller themes. And on top of that, the whole action thing, right? The whole running around and killing people, the killing the baddies with the robot and stuff like that need to be resolved, right? And my question is, it's good in my opinion. I mean, it's obviously good, not just in my opinion, but I think it's nice, it's cathartic, and people want it in a sense to just have these themes of friendship, trust, dreams, whatever, right? And being staying morally good, right? Like pursuit of happiness, shit.
Yeah.
But can and I was thinking about this all the way, throughout this weekend, is can these sorts of larger themes really be succinctly delved into in a unique way, in a way that I will want to watch this series and not, all the other series that talk about happiness and pursuit of happiness and dreams and, being a light and being morally upright in a bad world or whatever. Why would I want to watch this series in particular? And to do that, it would not only need to juggle everything, right? It would need to juggle the trigger formula action stuff. It would need to juggle the specific themes that are brought up earlier in the in episodes 1 through 6. It would need to also show, again, as you and Dark pointed out, how these themes are uniquely portrayed with these unique organic characters, right? But on top of that, in my opinion, the conclusion that I came to as I was thinking about this, right? As I was thinking about the series, was that in order to portray bigger themes like, again, love or being morally upright or whatever it is, right? In order to portray these larger themes in a more organic way, you can't just kind of show the theme in a state, right? You can't just have Lucy being like, "Oh, you're a good guy," or like you can't just have David being like, you know, "It was my dream," or "It was my mom's dream," or whatever. What needs to happen for it to really hit home, in my opinion, is you need to lengthen the process, or you need to make it seem like the process is lengthened, right? Like in almost like Schindler's List kind of way, where it's like they went through the process, right? They had the time skips, but it's like the guy like went through the process of like saving the people and so on, right? And if you don't lengthen that process and show the different actions that he goes through, and show David the journey he goes through to arrive at those thoughts, arrive at why am I trying to avenge Maine so much, or kind of follow in Maine's footsteps so much. Why am I trying to help out Lucy so much, or have Lucy not if not having Lucy contemplate more and having introspective monologues about what is my true goal, right? What is why am I so attracted to David and like the moon, all that bullshit, right? And by not having these drawn out developments, by not showing the process from A to B for these larger themes of love and trust and whatever, it does those bigger themes a disservice. And again, I think this goes along what Nier is implying, right? It's not showing these emotional changes that they're going through. And so in that way, it's not showing how these characters are in their own way, organically, uniquely dealing with the ideas of trust. How they are uniquely dealing with the ideas of, loss and having to carry on the burdens of dead people or whatever, or having to carry that in your mind, or like having to think of them in consideration next to what you want to be, right? It doesn't show that evolution as much, and so it doesn't become organic, and it kind of becomes condensed into like, yeah, dreams, hope, love, and then again the robot action scene, right?
Yeah.
So it's very unfortunate. I think again, a decent amount of fault can be laid at the hands of it being a 10 episode series, but I also think that they just try to juggle too many balls, and
Well,
the larger
it's
themes just require too much time, uh, and that time was all spent on doing the trigger action stuff. So
yeah, and it's ultimately, I feel like what it comes down to is that it's like these things need more time. Like these ideas, because I keep saying from the beginning, like from when I even started like turning on this series and being like, I actually fucking hate this now. Is that like these ideas aren't bad. Like
yeah.
the ideas
They're
for what you
common
have here
literary
aren't
ideas.
bad.
Yeah.
And the like you can see like these great things there. And yeah, it comes down to like, yeah, it's too short as a 10 episode series, but also what needs to not be lost is like, you knew you had a 10 episode series. Why the fuck would you try to do this? Like,
Yeah, why would you try to juggle like
why in
7+
God's
balls
name did
at the
you
same time?
fucking
Yeah.
think that you could tell all of these things in like
Yeah.
3.5 hours.
Yeah, you have like Game of Thrones like fucking falling on their fucking faces, not being able to resolve like 8 seasons worth of like 50 million episodes worth of dragons and everything like that, and you're like, no, we can cover all of that in like 10 episodes. You're like,
Yeah, I mean,
no,
like,
I don't think you
this
can.
isn't. I mean, this isn't really spoilers. Like, again, like I'll. Yeah, like this is a really weird like thing to bring up, but it's like The Boys literally takes a steroid analogy and uses it for fucking 3 seasons. It develops this analogy. Like 3 seasons of 8 episodes each, 1 hour each episode. Like you
Yeah.
you need a lot of time to even like tackle something like that. Let alone to be like, we're gonna do that and we're gonna do capitalism and we're gonna do like dreams. Just like
I mean, I think it's not even so much the steroid thing. It's like
well, I'm just saying as
Like, they
as
did
like
it-
one thing in isolation.
they did it
They took
twice.
a long time.
they did it 2 times with 2 different characters. Like, I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't know why. Like with Maine, it was fine. Like, right, like Maine's path is determined.
yeah,
Maine's
it's a good
path
setup.
is established, right?
Yeah, he's
And
because he's taken.
he
he's walked
is
that
like
road.
his fate is sealed. He's walking that road. He's as the
He is
series
the good man turned bad. He is the
as
example.
the series shows with his like cyberpsychosis episode, like he's going to keep running. He's going to keep moving forward, right?
Yeah.
And like his path is determined. And
Yeah.
for them to do the steroid like idea where like he's overmodding for the sake of moving forward, being stronger, being, the better, faster dude.
Yeah.
That's fine, right? Like he's an older character, like he's like developed, he's
Yeah.
good.
Again, he
But
is sort of
then-
the example, but it's like he's also a developed character, so it's
Yeah,
fine,
but
yeah.
then they try to do the same thing with David, and it's like it's not even that they pick up from where like Maine started or whatever, like because the only thing David takes from Maine is his arm, right? And then they time skip and they're like, yeah, David is like fucking chromed out, and we're gonna start this like steroid like analogy again. It's like,
Mm.
why? You literally just had a character like an episode before do the same thing. Why are you doing this again? Like, what is this? What is the purpose of this? What is this serving? Like, what is the goal here? It's really frustrating because
Well,
it's like,
I think it's
That's
okay
because
to
David is his, or that's because Maine is his idol, and Shimon wants to be like communism, that whole thing all over again.
well, it's yeah,
you learn
as
nothing.
yeah, I
except-
mean, as Toast said, I think it's okay for David to initially follow along Maine's tracks.
yeah, but
because,
again, the
so
characters never
he
have
is-
the moment of clarity where he's like, oh,
they don't have the introspection.
I'm
yeah.
on the same self-destructive path, and me
So what am I
doing
gonna do
this
about it?
is
Yeah.
ruining everything I fought for.
Yes,
Like it
yes,
is
yes.
actively destroying
That's important.
not only my dream, which is to continue the legacy of my heroes, which is, David's mom and Maine, but I'm also actively destroying the dream of other people that I am trying to fulfill, i.e.,
Mhm.
Lucy, right? Like there's never a moment of clarity. Like they literally just go, I'm built different.
and-
I'm special.
and
I'm the
don't
chosen one.
Also betraying the entire trust that Rebecca placed in him in that whole episode. What was it, like 8 or whatever?
Yeah.
Where she's like, "Look, like, if you think you know what you're doing, like, look, I'm gonna walk the road with you, but you're fucking up. Like, you're
Yeah. And
fucking
David's
losing
like,
it."
yeah, okay. And then immediately afterwards, like Rebecca is out here like, please don't fucking kill yourself. And David's like, no. Like it's like
I
like
need to-
where like we're in episode 9 at this point,
Mhm.
right? And David is at death's fucking door, right? Like he is on the brink and he knows he's on the brink. and yet there's no moment where he's like, maybe I should cool down. Maybe I should stop.
Yeah, like, is
maybe I
this
should.
what Lucy would want?
Yeah, like maybe I
for
should
some
look
reason.
to like what
It's all
my
for
friends are
Zero
saying.
too.
It's so dumb.
Yeah, and again, it's
And
weird.
the-
It's like it's like they took the. It's like they forgot that the moon wasn't the point. Like when
Yeah.
in writing David, it's like they didn't realize. Like either they wrote David to be such a fucking moron that like he doesn't even, but or like they forgot that like the moon isn't actually like
And I mean,
this
the thing
be
is,
all
they
end
could
all
have
fucking
told
paradise.
a story of like, power corrupts, right? Like Night City's influence is fucking with David, right? Like his like he's getting swept up in, the promises of money, big jobs and stuff like that. But they never do that either. Because
Yeah,
again,
they don't go
he
that.
works
throughout-
like
They don't go
minor
down that
job.
route. Yeah.
There's,
throughout
like,
the
two
yeah
jobs in
throughout
the
the
show.
throughout the entire arc post time skip, David is working small time jobs. Like he's not earning big money, right? Like he's
Mhm.
earning money, he's got a nice place, but it's like he's not pursuing the money. Like throughout this entire arc, David's stated goals are to look after Lucy and fulfill her dream and carry on Maine's legacy. And for whatever reason, David's like perception of carrying out Maine's legacy is to be a fucking roid head. And like
I think, yeah, again, and not only that, but it's like, how do I say this? Like, in in terms of like steroid use and like how bodybuilders are, like extending the analogy back to real life, right? There are people who specifically choose to say, okay, well, I know that, I have this sort of deteriorating effect and I'm going to have to live with this for my entire life, but I'm going to do it anyways because this is my life. This is what I enjoy too much to do with it. And the issue, even with that sort of route, in terms of that sort of decision, in terms of David, right? One could say, right, somebody who's defending Cyberpunk Edgerunners at the last couple of episodes could say something like, "Well, David's taking that sort of route, right? He's saying he's making the sacrifice, and even knowing that he is on death's bed, right, and just doing it to save Lucy and whatever." But the issue is that the tone is not again, as you said, as you and Dark said, it's not a gradual one, it's not a deliberate one, it's not really deliberate, it's not really something that's like, okay, well, this happened, so I'm going to have to do this. I've made peace with myself. It's not anything like that. It's more just like, hey, I need to become the hero now. So I'm just going to blow everything up, including myself. And that's, again, feeding into this process of all these complex and nice themes are just getting fed into this shredding machine that is the trigger the trigger action hero plot, right?
yeah,
And he's just like, I'm going to just push myself to the limit and just sacrifice everything because I need to be the hero. I need to save the world. And it's
yeah,
like,
and
you know.
the scene at the end too, where they're like, "Oh, David, you need to get into the big fucking stupid robot that looks retarded."
Yeah.
Like that scene, from what I took, is supposed to be like David sort of having a reactive moment, right? Like sort of panicking, going
Mhm.
over the brink, right? Like that's
Right, exactly.
his breaking point, right? Where, Lucy's captured, right? He gets the fucking video call, and it's like you need to get in a robot and save Lucy, bro. And he's like, yeah, I need to save Lucy. I need to get it into the robot, no matter like what happens to me. And like this scene is supposed to be David sort of having a panic like moment where it's like this is him sort of teetering on the edge, but this is what pushes him over, right?
Hmm.
But the entire episode, before he gets into the robot, he's already like he's 100% like dedicated. He's going over the brink. He's fucking already decided. He's fucked, right? So
Yeah.
what is the purpose of having this scene where it's like, David, if you don't go over the brink here, Lucy's dead. It's like, well, he was already going to do that. So you don't need to dangle like Lucy's life in front of David for him to already like go over this path of self-destruction
Can't
in the
threaten me
pursuit,
with a good time
like yeah,
out of
in the
business.
pursuit of power. Like you really don't need this like carrot in front of the main character's face
Yes.
because he's already fucking eaten the carrot, like,
Yes.
and the stick. Like
Yeah.
David was supposed to be special, but in the end, he wasn't that special.
Which
and
again,
So,
which I mean, also like as an aside, just as a gripe in general with like the series more in a basic sense, like that was your setup that you started in like episode 1. That was it. This is how you like. This is where you like try to call this a payoff. Like
yeah, with the callback scene where
the
it's like he's
fucking
walking
like
through the city was
yeah,
really
it's like
shit.
no, I mean there was that, but it was also the like the idea of like the Arasaka call in like episode what was it either like 1 or 2 when the dude is his son getting his ass kicked and he's like, oh damn, this kid's got like a Santa Vista and like that's crazy, and they're like, no, like just monitor him, like let him have it, like we need to see like where this goes or whatever. And it's like, damn, like just the way all of that was
Yeah,
obscured until like
that was
the
your
second to
long
last
con.
episode
Yeah.
is just like the long con was the shitty dumb looking fucking cyber skeleton, really? Like that was it?
yeah,
That's not
it's
even
just-
for him? Like, okay.
yeah.
Wow, like I thought this was gonna go somewhere even remotely interesting, but sure.
Yeah, I just again, it's the whole like the whole corporations battling against each other. Again, it just ended up just becoming a very incoherent
Well, that
shootout,
I would say
and
is an
then
even different thing too, because yeah, it's like because like I feel like David's aspect, like while it was tied up in it, was like that hinting was a little different, right? Because you had
Mhm.
that, but then you also had like the Faraday shit,
yeah,
which again paid off ultimately in the same way, where you're just like, yeah, this is tying together, but like, who cares? Like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
this is what you're gonna give me after that shit? Like, Faraday is like fucking switching sides. Like, what? Like, what are you doing? Like, why is this even like? Why is this occurring?
Mhm. Yeah, and it's very disappointing again. Um, how do I say this? I think this shows a it's too much, I think. Trigger is just trying to I mean, obviously in this case uh they bit off more than they could chew, but
not that they bit
I
off more
think
than they could chew. It's just they just rehash the same story elements over and over again.
Well,
yeah, that
I would
is
say it's two
it's their
parts to
formula.
it. They certainly did that, which didn't help because like if you've been watching Trigger series, you're like, again, this ended the same fucking way. Like this is these character arcs are very similar. Like Lucy is just I keep saying she's literally 0-2 in so many ways, but with even less development and introspection.
Because
Uh-huh.
she's old, she's an adult already. That's why.
Yeah.
And
But
no,
but I
I
don't
think
think it's fair to say that it's not also because they fucking bit off way more than they could chew in 10 episodes.
I think it's very unfortunate that Trigger found something that gives I don't want to be insulting, but like
Do
gives
it. Do it.
kids gives younger demographics, gives kids and people that are kind of inclined to think like that, right? Inclined to think like younger kids. Um easy catharsis, right? And it's just like, oh, like everything's down and just like I'm about to get screwed, but screw it. I'm gonna push myself to the limit and just save everyone at the cost of my own life, and I'm gonna be the hero. And
Didn't save
it's
anyone
just
except for Lucy, and even that's arguable because she's on the moon, which is directly connected to Night City.
yeah, exactly. And this very
How long is she
this
gonna stay up there? Will she pay rent?
I mean, you can stay up there forever. Like, you
she's
can
gonna stay up there
live
as
on the
long as
moon.
Elon Musk doesn't
There's
come
apparently
over.
like free colonies on the moon too in Cyberpunk,
Yeah.
but it's like ultimately the whole point of Cyberpunk is, do you know who's bad? The rich people. Oh, by the way,
Yeah,
if you like, it's a lot of money to go to and from the moon. So like, we only have like enough for like the one-way trip. Do you know who has the money for a lot of trips and to go to the moon and to find Lucy and to fuck up shit if they feel like it? The rich people that are in Night
yeah,
City
exactly.
that could just go to the moon. Like,
So it's very unfortunate that not well, I guess unfortunate is the wrong word to put it, but Trigger clearly knows what isn't broken in a sense, right? They are appealing to the younger demographics. They're appealing to people who are easily lured in by the low-hanging fruit of the easy emotional catharsis that is brought on by the Trigger formula, right? But it is evident to most people that whenever this Trigger formula is put into is given restrictions or is given additional tasks, right? It's put into a 10 episode thing. It's put into, maybe a shorter movie or an OVA, or maybe it's given these extra themes that it would like to juggle, right? And it's included, but then it has to resolve them. Like again, the capitalism stuff, like whatever, and maybe more emphasis on I mean, I don't even want to say the themes work very well too either, because it's like again, the trigger action sequence in itself works well, and the whole, you know, younger kids and people who are easily lured by those low hanging fruits, they kind of scream and cheer and giggle whenever the themes of the love, friendship, trust, my goals, exceeding those goals, exceeding those goals, exceeding the goals, like all of that stuff. Like when they appear on the screen, they scream and clap and cheer. But I personally have never found the resolution of those themes, the extension of those themes by Trigger, or even the lack of them. I've never found the way that Trigger treats those themes very appealing. They treat them much in the way sort of Gen Urobuchi does, right? Where he kind of lays them out. He's just like, there's going to be themes about classism. There's going to be themes about loss. There's going to be themes about having to be morally upright or having to do utilitarian things or whatever it is, right? But then he never really creates a unique perspective around them. He never creates a unique resolution based upon the characters. He never creates, a very sensible, reasonable reaction to those themes based upon how the characters are built, right? Gen Urobuchi, Trigger, these people are too focused on just setting it up and just kind of, blowing smoke up people's asses, right? And making people feel good, right? Rather than
or
really
feel
resolving that properly and
bittersweet,
having,
which means that
yeah,
there's
yeah,
depth, which
catharsis.
means
Yeah,
adult,
catharsis.
which means
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah,
Remember,
they're too busy just aiming for that easy bits of emotional release for them to properly grapple with the idea of what does it mean when people say I'm heading towards my goals? What does it mean for people to say I just want to get away with this, or like you need to be morally upright um in like a sea of evil? What does that actually mean in real life, in real applications? And it's very unfortunate that Trigger has never properly shown an example of organic characters grappling with these larger themes and resolving them and coming peace with them in their mind properly. And I think that's also part of why, again, when Toast was asking me about who's your favorite character, right? I think before the podcast. And, I
Who is your favorite
responded
character?
in Cyberpunk or what? In TGL? What are you talking about?
Both.
In, in
It's the same
Cyberpunk, again,
conversation.
I said, yeah, I said it was Main, because again, I think especially the lead up to episode 6. He had the best character development. And I think TTGL, I would say Viral, because again, he showed the very same sort of like kind of like reasonable like kind of character development as in the latter half of the series. And but I also mentioned Toast that I pretty much never have a series or trigger series where I actually have a character that I'm really focused on or really like. And I do have some of those in other series. But I've never had like a specific favorite character or whatever um in some in trigger series like TTGL or in Cyberpunk. Just not because I love all the characters. That's not or love or hate all the characters. It's more just I've never found any of them very appealing in terms of character development, in terms of the way they are supposed to drive the plot, and so on. And it's just very unfortunate that that sort of trigger formula has been popularized to the extent where the trigger studio feels like they don't need to think about how it will apply to their characters, where they can feel like it feels like the studio just says, okay, well, I mean, even if the characters are kind of shitty and don't really properly resolve the themes in any proper way, or develop in any proper way, the trigger formula will carry us. The trigger formula will carry us to the moon, because all of the saps at the bottom will just lap it up, and emotional release and all that. So it's very unfortunate that it's come to this. That's not to say I do think that this Cyberpunk, the characters that are in here again, Main, Dorio, Kiwi, characters like that, show
Why not even
so far.
including Rebecca?
Yeah, not even Rebecca. I think these characters show the most improvement Trigger has had so far in terms of creating reasonable organic characters that are trying to come to grips with their own resolutions of the themes at hand. But that being said, um, a lot of the characters, a lot of the character developments, interactions, stuff like that are still very lacking in Trigger series. And again, it's going to continue to be like that for the longest time because it works. Because Trigger says, okay, well, we'll say, yeah, I'm the hero aiming for the goal. I was at the bottom, but now I'm here, whatever. And that sells. That sort of easy emotional release sells. And so, now this is the result. This is Cyberpunk. This is what we got. So it's very unfortunate. Yep.
Who do we blame for this? Do we blame Trigger or do we blame CD Projekt Red for these shenanigans?
I mean, the way this conversation
We
is
blame
going,
both.
we
We
blame both,
for
but it's
one.
also
But it's like,
we want to blame Trigger, right?
Who's
for
the
this
lesser?
from
Yeah. So CD Projekt Red is the lesser of two evils. And
CDPR is probably the lesser of the two evils,
would-
but it's also they kind of fell into the Trigger trap, right? Where it's like everybody's like, oh, Trigger Studios, oh,
I
maybe
mean,
TTGL and stuff. Yeah,
no, it's
right?
not TTGL. It's Trigger's kind of the most Western friendly studio to
Yes.
go towards. That's
Yes.
one of the
they
things.
they headed like stuff like the
Definitely.
crowdfunding, international crowdfunding,
Little
and stuff
Witch
like that. Yeah, that's right.
Academia, Kill la Kill,
Yes,
those
sir.
are all pretty Western friendly. Promare too.
Well, in terms of marketing too, I believe was the crowdfunding for Promare. It was for Promare, right? That they did
No.
the crowdfunding for.
No, it was Little Witch.
What was it for?
Yeah,
It was Little Witch. Yeah, I apologize. So they did the crowdfunding
Promare
for Little
had
Witch, and
a simul dub, right? Or simul release, was that it?
something like that.
Yeah.
and they've been on the cutting edge in terms of like international marketing for the longest time. Yeah, for sure.
So my question is, would Edgerunners be better if a different series or a different company directed it, produced it?
Can you imagine the timeline? Can you imagine
think
the
it
timeline if
depends-
Mappa did this and Trigger did
Dude.
Chainsaw Man?
I mean, that would
And
be
Cyberpunk-
cursed as fuck. Like, we
and
might come
Cyberpunk
out better
turned
than
out like-
this, but like, holy shit, if they
But
fucked with
let's say
Chainsaw Man-
that happened and like
Oof.
Mappa like tried to fit this into 10 episodes and created like a B+ series. Like they had a valiant effort, but then they kind of failed because it was 10 episodes. And then like Trigger took Chainsaw Man and like got all the money and still fucked it up at the end. Holy shit!
Trigger
The
just
amount of hate mail
truncates
people-
all of fucking Chainsaw Man and a
Yeah,
time skip
exactly.
in episode 11 to 12. Yeah, absolutely.
Is
Sounds like
Matha
fun.
like the next best thing for a Western-friendly anime studio?
I mean, I would say like to
probably.
never trust like a specific studios. And again, I
Yeah.
learned my own lesson with regards to PA Works, for
I
example.
don't know,
PA
man. I
Works.
like UFO Table and I like Shaft.
Yeah, you like UFO Table until they,
Well, actually, UFO
they're-
Table would be a friendly one to approach once their fucking Genshin thing starts releasing, and then that blows up, and I'm
And-
sure every Western player is gonna like cream their pants over UFO Table.
If
I mean,
if
they
the-
already are, though. To be fair.
if the Genshin
Yeah,
impact,
but like the Genshin is like, you
Yeah,
know,
no, I
that's gonna like
understand.
be a huge fucking like boost to just the
It's
average
better.
Yeah.
English
Sure.
dubber watcher.
I really hope the Genshin anime doesn't do better than the Mahotsuka no Yoru adaptations. I really hope Mahotsuka no Yoru is good
I mean,
because it better be.
Genshin's big.
Yeah, I guess it's
No,
pretty big.
I don't care. Well, what's the other studio? What's another good studio for Western friendly? Kamikaze
I mean,
Doga?
Maybe
the thing is,
Orange.
I
the
don't
thing
know.
is,
Wit.
Honestly,
the thing is, you
Like,
have to,
Oh, yeah,
the
Wit.
thing you're not necessarily searching for a quote unquote Western friendly studio. You're searching for a studio that has a proven track record of making anime that is just solid and like watchable by.
Friendly towards the West, and it's. I know I'm putting there. I definitely want a studio that's Western friendly because
I mean, the thing is, when you say Western friendly, at the end of the day, like as long as they do marketing, they're Western
a-
friendly. But you don't want a Western friendly Milipensi, right? That's not what you want. You don't want a Western friendly studio and then turns around and makes Aknohana, right? That's not what you want.
I want something that's friendly that would be easily merged with the Western IP is what I mean.
I think
Because,
that I think that's
Science
most,
Saru,
I think
Science
that's just
Saru.
most large studios. Like I said, like I
Yeah.
think Orange could
Production
do that
IT.
too. Like
Orange is most. I mean, Orange is up
I mean,
for Trigun, right? And everyone loves Trigun in the West.
The studios that work with Star Wars Visions is a good start, right? Science Saru,
one's that?
Production IG. What?
So
Yeah, exactly,
Production IG.
Trigger.
Yeah. Yeah, Trigger, exactly. Science Saru, Production IG, I think Tezuka Productions or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
Tezuka Productions is the one.
Toei. Ha ha ha, Toei.
Toei, God.
They
I mean,
love the
Toei
West.
at least have money, and they're always busy doing like Godzilla stuff too. So it's like, but yeah. Anyways,
What? Not that Toei.
aren't
What?
they?
No,
Don't
I'm
didn't
talking about Dragon Ball and One Piece Toei.
didn't
What?
It's the same umbrella.
Yeah, that's the same umbrella, right? Under the Toei
I'm pretty
Oh,
animation.
sure.
Toei Animation,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's very unfortunate again.
I mean,
Trigger.
Toei did make a World Trigger. Ha 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 ha. Get it?
Yeah. I mean, I guess we should kind of start wrapping this up because I think, it's pretty obvious that a lot of this is, we've kind of gone over generally what we think the faults are. Again, it's just not enough development, not enough proper
I
formulation of the themes.
I want Trigger to actually do a happy ending in one of their IPs. Where everyone gets out.
I want Trigger to prevent themselves. I want Trigger to do a complete, just like regular school life series that doesn't
Little Witch
with
Academia.
no robots, no aliens, no
Little
the
Witch
hero
Academia
going
may
around
as
blowing
well have
everything
done
up.
that with because they did do
Yeah.
robots, they did drones.
Yeah. It's
But
like
I mean,
Little
like-
Witch Academia got like the closest, but I really want them to just be like do something like
You say that like
yeah.
Little Witch Academia didn't have a giant fucking mech
Yeah,
because it did.
Like
I just want them to try doing something like a Hyoka or like a Hanasako Iroha or like a Chiaya Furu or like what was that recent fishing episode? The girls fishing thing, or like a mug thing, Super Cub, just Tamayura, Tamako, just do one of those. Just do one of those. I just want to see them doing it. Just like, or even just like I want to
Yeah,
see
and what's gonna happen is it's gonna be like fucking. They're
a
gonna
robot's gonna come
do
in.
the end. No, yeah, it's gonna be like the end of Gridman, where they're gonna be like, "Wait, the world is fake." It's like, well, I
exactly.
mean, I knew that, but
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
one of them is gonna be like, "I'm actually not from here. I need
Yeah.
to go now," and it's gonna be sad.
But it's
And
only
then
2
they're gonna be
episodes
like,
before the end. It's only 2
yeah, no,
episodes
that
before
happened
the
at the
end.
end of Gridman. That was the very end of Gridman. The like villain antagonist girl is like not from the
Akane,
Gridman
right?
world.
Yeah, Akane.
Yeah, she's like a
And
fucking shut-in, and then she's like, "Okay, I got to disappear," and it was just like a bittersweet send-off. And it's
there
just
should have
like
been
I was like, "Damn, like you guys did it even here. Like even here you did it, huh? Wow."
it's like there should have been a twist where like maybe Rebecca be like, David, I'm actually not a cyborg. I'm all organic. And I would be like,
I'm
oh man.
actually an alien.
Yeah.
That's why she's blue.
I'm actually your daughter from the
I'm,
future
Yeah,
I'm
that's what
timeline.
actually that's what should have happened when Lucy went to the moon. There should have been fucking alien greys there. Or
man,
the
it's,
Verm, or whatever they were called. The fucking
Oh.
Darling in the Franks, the Verm.
I'm actually the spiral nemesis. I mean, like, at this point, literally every series so far made by Trigger has had some form of self-sacrifice by a main character, so that at
Yeah, it's
least
a
one
self-sacrifice,
survives.
bittersweet ending.
It's like
Because then it makes
you,
it feel like it genuinely. I think it just. I don't know if they realize this, but the viewers certainly fucking feel this way, and the people who just lap it up are like, "Oh, okay. So if I'm like sad, but then like hopeful, again, that means this is deep, which means this is like, you know, adult or something, or
this
like
is
this is
just
like more than what it is."
This
It's
is
like,
it's
no, this
deep
is a really
now.
like
It's deep.
this is a very shallow emotional cash out. Like
what's
this is
the
exactly what it is.
it's like the sacrifice of the previous generation will pave the way towards the new generation. That's how a drill works. It's TTGL all over again. Get it? Because they spin. Ha 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 ha. It's
Yeah.
literally every Trigger series has done that so far, excepting
It's
Little Witch
we did.
Academia because it's Little Witch Academia. So
I
every
mean,
time they try to make
they
a
still do have a generational like send off though. Don't
Yep,
worry.
they do.
Again, do
they-
not worry. They get it in there some way. But yeah,
But
it is different tonally, just in general.
triggers that Trigger's main
But I
message
do think
always.
more importantly, they're only effective ones. Like I haven't seen Luluco, but Nier says very effective at least. But you know, for me, it's like also Kill a Kill like was the most effective they've done it. Probably because it was like it was a self-sacrifice, but it was more of like a like
I mean, it was a self-sacrifice, but it actually mattered, and it
yeah,
actually
Yeah,
had like
I think we have to be
it had
careful about this
gravity
because
to it, and it put a ribbon
yeah,
on like you know it's a send off to like this thing that's not of this world like and like now it's time for you to like now that you've grown to like take that forward on your own.
but I mean, yeah, we have to be careful about this, or not careful, but it's like we
I
just
mean,
have
it
to put a warning where it's like when we're talking about we're trying to the viewers out there, it might seem like we're trying to drive this discussion to a place where we're talking like, oh, self-sacrifice, like as a general like literary advice. It's pretty like weak, the way authors use it. But
No,
if that's not
it's
how
just
that
a
works,
fucking scalpel, so you can't go in there like it's a fucking steak knife.
yeah, exactly.
like
That is exactly right. You have to be careful with how it's used, and the way that Trigger
It's also
uses
not the same.
self-sacrifice.
It's not the best tool for every job.
Yeah, exactly. The way Trigger uses it is not only do they use, it's a hammer and everything's a nail, right, to trigger, but it's also the fact that the way they use it, it's very plain in that the whole like, oh, I'm gonna push my limits. I'm gonna push my limits, even if all these bad things are going on. I'm gonna become the best, and I'm just gonna exceed all my limits and the limits, and do all these things. And that's the blowing up of the emotional balloon, right? That's you're blowing air into the emotional balloon, and then the heroine's like, no, you can't sacrifice yourself. And he's just like, no, I exceeded my limits. I did it in order to save all you guys to for family, all that, and I'm gonna just go out with a bang. This is the last gift I can offer you guys. And then boom, he does it. And that's the release. That's the blowing up of the emotional balloon that you blew air into, right? And that just the formula over and over and over and over and over again. And it's just too plain. It's too public. It's in just such public view, and it's just not, it's not worth it anymore. You know what I mean?
Self-sacrifice is best if, like, the surviving characters or like learn something from it.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
very rarely done. Like, did Lucy
Yes.
learn anything from this? No.
She's just
I don't
sad.
think
Yeah,
she
she's
did.
just kind of
Totally
sad.
learned that she should
because-
probably, open her mouth every now and then and not stand around for 2 episodes until she gets kidnapped.
Yeah, it's
Did,
very.
did I
no,
did I do
yeah.
this? Did I kill David? Maybe.
Yes,
I-
as a matter of
It's like
fact.
that meme.
As a
It's
matter of
like that
fact,
meme
yes.
of like the gun, somebody shooting the guy on the couch, right? And then it's like, who shot? What happened?
Yeah, who shot
Who-
David?
Who's got
Yeah,
the real cyber psychosis here?
exactly. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with what Toast said, where you need to have this sort of unspooling, this unique organic retrospection of like, oh, this happened, and this is how things are gonna be from now on, and blah 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 blah. Blah. And it's not just, oh, well, he's gone now. Like that's not how that works. Like, no, like it's too simple, and or not that it's too simple, but it's like the simplicity of it emphasizes the fact that all you did was you just blew up the emotional balloon. It emphasizes the fact that all you set all this up for was just to aim for that simple catharsis. And, it's very unfortunate that.
Wait, hold on. Did Lucy keep the jacket? Or because I remember the jacket flying off
Oh,
once he
that's-
jacked in.
Oh,
and I was like,
yeah.
who has the jacket?
No one,
That's a
probably.
good point.
Yeah.
In the
It's
desert.
in the game.
It
It's
flew
just
off
fucking
into the wind, yeah.
somewhere.
It's on
Yeah,
Maine's
it's-
body. It's
So-
on.
so-
I mean, it's
So-
literally probably where you find it in Cyberpunk 2077. It's the same thing with Rebecca's shotgun. Like you have to go and pick it up. Like
Oh, so it's symbolic because once he jacked into the cyber skeleton, it flew away. So that was supposed to be, oh, David's gone forever now. Oh, I get it. Because that was his last vestige of humanity and attachments. Was his jacket that his mom left? Oh man,
yeah.
this
Also,
is
it was
deep.
pretty cool. Like as a complete aside, it was also really cool having Rebecca die in the last like 2 minutes of the show, literally to just take her out of the IP. That was also really cool.
You know,
So I'm
she's-
gonna fully blame CDPR for that one. So they can fucking eat my ass. Like
Yeah, I mean,
it's just it's super obvious. Like and also like why Adam Smasher? Like
He's
he's
cool,
in the
dude.
fucking game. Like why would you? He's the whole game is about that. Like
the-
why is this about that?
he's really the Deus Ex Machina of this.
Yeah, exactly. He fucking shows up, and you're like, oh, okay, well, this is it.
All right, we need to end the
literally
series?
no
All
one
right,
survives
Coleman.
here too, and it's also like no one's living here, like because how do you have anyone survive against Adam Smasher when that's the whole thing is that no one does, and he's the final boss of Cyberpunk 2077.
That's why he's called the living legend, because you only become a legend if you die, except Adam Smasher. I get it. But yeah, they had to they had to remove Rebecca somehow because she's specifically trigger added, so goodbye.
Yeah.
I
But,
just
uh,
there she goes. Man, why did she disappear in episode 3 and come back episode 6? It's like,
I would assume it's
Oh,
because
man.
she was written in later on, and for whatever reason, they didn't think, this character that's probably going to be really popular, we should actually like keep them in the show. But that would again require probably some level
they
of
say
introspection.
there was some argument whether or not to keep Rebecca. So they're like, okay,
It
we'll have
wasn't
her
really
here.
an
There.
argument. It was just that like she wasn't there originally.
I bet there's
they
more behind
presented it to
that.
CDPR. They were like, I don't know, and then Trigger was like, yeah, but like she's going to be popular, and they were like, okay. Fair enough.
Just telling you, yeah, exactly.
But
yeah,
I don't know. Like that shit was also like kind of a big gripe of mine that like I don't like tie-in series that like throw in characters when you know, like, oh, okay, I can tell exactly what's happening now, especially regardless of the timing of it either. It's just like,
Yeah.
nah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we've pretty much gone over all of the sort of how it's structured, all of our sort of gripes over it, and I do think they are valid, especially since it's not just like this is a one-off thing. Trigger has kind of shown this tendency, and it's a natural um consequence of what Trigger is making and how it fits into the cyberpunk world that CDPR tried to create. So um, we should probably just go over, I guess, any last words, and then kind of, I don't know, like I guess if I want, I'll start off. But it's like it was an interesting experiment in a way, or it was an interesting try, and it kind of only reinforced for me, like this series only reinforced for me that Trigger are kind of set in their ways and they're just going to keep using this formula until it obviously stops working for them, until people get kind of tired of it or generational shift or whatever happens. But it is a very unfortunate kind of bottleneck in the current process, I think, right now, where Trigger is just kind of doing this and people are lapping it up, and we're not going to get any more sort of character development. And I hope that in the future, Trigger maybe tries to branch out to doing completely other genres, because I would really like to see them take on again something like a completely just sit down normal school series without any robots or aliens or time travel or cyber whatever whatnot, and just try making organic characters for once. Try just really fleshing that out instead of just having the hero blow up in a blaze of glory in episode 11 out of 12 or episode 25 out of 26 or whatever. So that's my hope for them. But anyways, Near, any last words slash retrospections?
Show sucks, honestly. I don't know. I really think the first part, like the first 6 episodes, are solid. I think they're a good.
Yes.
Like obviously
Episode 6 is
there's
so good.
gaffes, sure,
Fuck.
but
Yeah.
yeah, like the build up is solid. The emotional payoff in episode 6 is very good. I think episode 6 is definitely the best structured episode. Like there's a like Maine's entire like character arc is sort of condensed within that single episode, and it's done well
Yeah.
too.
But then they
Um,
also bring in the other themes as well, and it's not
yeah,
just
it's just a really good episode. But then again, calling back to sort of what I said at the beginning, I really do think there was genuine studio interference with the second half, where they were I don't know if it was CDPR or if it was just the general like cyberpunk writers that were like, you know, uh, these characters aren't in the game, right?
Mhm.
And we need to tie it into the game somehow for promotional purposes, right?
Mhm.
And so Trigger is out here like, well, how the fuck do we do that, right? And so they immediately start going, well, how about we put David in a big fucking robot and he goes out in a blaze of glory against Atom Smasher, who's a character from the game that we can involve without having any consequences on the game, right?
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
and my issue is, first of all, you don't need any tie-in with the fucking game at all.
Yeah, the world of Cyberpunk is
It's the world of
fine enough.
Cyberpunk is fucking huge. Night City is massive. It's fucking ginormous. And there are innumerable amounts of stories that you could tell without any of them impacting each other at all.
Right. Exactly.
And like to me, it feels very obvious that they were told to include characters from the game. Like they definitely said to do that. And the way Trigger did it it to me feels panicky. I really feel like the last episode is like a shit, fuck, like we need to fucking get rid of these characters that
Quick, cut
like
the bonsai
we
tree here.
genuinely like they were like we have to get rid of these characters that would absolutely like have massive impacts on like the cyberpunk story because like
Mhm.
Quick, these
they're
characters are too
yeah like
interesting. We gotta kill them now.
these characters are making waves. What do we do? Well, first of all we have to fucking kill David because like David he's fucking in a giant fucking robot now that has
Yeah.
fucking gravity beams. Second of all, we have to kill Rebecca because like Rebecca's a character that there's no way if she survives, there's no way that she wouldn't be making huge waves in any other subsequent story, like
Mhm.
dealing with like underworld crime in Night City. We have to get rid of Lucy somehow, so we'll just ship her off to the fucking moon.
I mean,
And
you can't kill both the characters. That'll
yeah,
cause outrage. At least one.
but yeah, the last
The least
episode to
interesting
me
character.
feels really panicky. Like it's really like we have to get rid of these characters now.
Right.
And I think it's probably the least satisfying payoff of any Trigger series ever, just straight up, because none of the sacrifices mean anything. Again, like Dark said, Lucy gets to the moon, but it doesn't fucking matter because so can
Right.
Arasaka. Like it's not fucking hard. Um, and like again, there's just no moment of clarity in the second part where it's like I'm doing something wrong. Like the things we are doing as a cast of characters is wrong. Like
Right.
this isn't the way we behaved. This isn't the way any of the characters behaved, right? Like the only one that is like consistent in my opinion is Kiwi, right? Like Kiwi
Yes.
is the only one who with throughout the story is a through and through citizen of Night City. She doesn't fucking trust anyone. She's willing to backstab people to, keep thriving and surviving. And, in typical Night City fashion, it comes to bite her in the ass. But it's like
Right.
she's the only one, like post time skip, that really remains consistent.
Mhm.
I'm not really counting Rebecca because Rebecca's not a fucking character before the time skip. So like
Rebecca's also, yeah, I mean, she's not in the show for most
yeah,
of before the time skip. Like,
but like David is a completely different fucking character. Lucy's like fucking shady as fuck for some reason post time skip, and then like, everyone else
and
is
she's also
either
not doing anything tangible, like
yeah, like to
realistically
the plot.
tangible to the story. Like,
Again, I think it's okay for those characters to be in those different states post time skip, but then they have to explain and resolve themselves. That's the
Yeah,
issue.
it's
Yes.
just it's really sloppy.
Hmm.
Again, I think it's the least satisfying payoff I've ever seen in a Trigger series. Like I finished the show and I was just in a bad mood. Like I wasn't like
The
I've seen people online they're like,
ending was not good.
"Oh, I was so sad. I was so sad." It's like
I was angry.
what media have
I
you
was angry.
consumed? Like I was upset because that
Yeah.
amounted to nothing. Like there was no
Yes.
payoff. There was no
Yes.
catharsis at all. It was just frustrating. Like
Yep.
none of the characters behaved the way they originally like should have. None of their actions like amounted to really anything at all. And
Mhm.
in the end, we were left with nothing. And so,
Yes.
like, it was just really frustrating and upsetting to watch this crumble apart in the span of 4 episodes. Um, and really, like, I'd say it crumbles apart in the span of 3 episodes, and then it fucking explodes in the last episode. Like it is a genuine car wreck. But yeah, it just disastrous in my opinion. Um,
Yeah. I just yeah, it's unfortunate, and I think that sort of the community reaction that you're talking about kind of reminds me of again what we were talking about a couple of days before about Overlord, right? Reactions to Overlord, where people were like,
I love
"Oh, they do
Overlord.
bad things happen in the series.
Ainz is
Now I'm
actually
sad."
evil. It's like,
Yeah,
oh
exactly.
man.
It's like now I'm sad. It's like you need to like open your eyes and see how the characters are like behaving. Where it's like a lot of it's very like this is like standard fare. Like there's more gore, but in terms of like the actual conceptual actions that they're taking, it's not. It's very stereotypical, right? But yeah, thank you very much, Nier, for your couple of words. And Toast, what about you? Any
I
last words?
love Edgerunners. I can't wait for season 2.
Season 2, baby.
Completely new cast. I mean, it feels like there's probably gonna did this do well? It feels like it did do well, right?
I mean, it did extremely well,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
also like, I mean, if I was them, and I hope the discourse does turn around soon, because I believe it will. But I would be sweating that like this is lightning in a bottle because you killed your entire cast. So
Oh yeah, yeah,
you
that too,
can't
that
do
too.
this again. This
It's
season
like
2 will not be successful.
it's like Gridman versus Dynazenon, right? Gridman got some stuff because Akane and like stuff that became like viral, right? But it's like you can't expect the same with Dynazenon, right?
Yeah,
That's
that like I
the
like
issue.
Dynazenon, but
Yeah,
again, you can't do this twice.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So,
I mean, like,
yeah,
season 2. It's like,
Because if season
I,
2 would happen, they would literally need to kill every character again. And I feel like at that point, at least, my faith in the general public is that they would come to realize too, like, wait a minute. Hold on a second. This is stupid. This is like really not paying off any investments.
I mean, I googled the Cyberpunk DLC, the Edgerunners DLC for Cyberpunk, and it says to get David's jacket, it says all of David's crew have disbanded, but who's left in David's crew? Lucy's on the moon. Who cares about her? Like Falco, is that him? Is he the only one there?
It's probably Falco. Like,
So, what's season 2 going to be like? Falco leads a new crew.
just the way it's just the guy.
Just
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
the other problem with the season 2 would be that it would, depending on how they do it, like it wouldn't work because like 2077 is not even over yet technically because of the DLC. It's like
There's
they
another
still got to do
DLC
a
and then
lot
a
with
sequel,
that.
right?
Yeah, and it's
So,
like, so how are you going to write around that? Like, it's, I
Cyberpunk
mean, they could try and do it, but if this one was any indicator, that's not going to work.
Cyberpunk Edgerunners Orion.
Because I think you could, I think you can easily write around 2077 because, like Nier said, it's a fucking big city, like, and it's a big world. Like, you don't need to fucking tie it into the game. But if they were doing it here, I would assume going forward, that's what they would do again.
Also, like the big evil guy at the end was Adam Smasher, right? Well, he's out. Who are you gonna replace
Yeah, that's
Adam
what I mean. Like,
Smasher
he's
with?
gone too. But I mean, also, like, arguably, he's not even he's not a presence in the fucking series anyway, in
Yeah,
Edgerunners.
he's
So,
just
like,
there.
yeah, he just shows up.
But yeah, season 2, maybe a different studio. And what else? As a Trigger series in general, it's not going to be one of my. It's good, but it's not going to be one of my favorites. Because
Mhm.
my favorite is still TTGO, hands down. Because I like me my giant robots,
Uh-huh.
and yeah. Even though they both have some pretty bittersweet endings, at least TTGL's is more hopeful for the future, and this one's just okay. There you go. Everyone's dead, yeah, except Lucy, because you Lucy's the main character. Lucy's a character that didn't get any real character development. Right? She survives because she doesn't raise any death flags,
Mhm.
and I'm like, that's cool, I guess. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I kind of wish a different series would have headed this because, like I've been saying, it's pretty standard Trigger story development. So I wish a lot of it had been changed. But I mean, oh well, we got what we got.
Mhm.
You could maybe blame Netflix for this because
No,
Netflix
definitely not.
adaptations. I don't know,
Definitely
man.
not. The only thing you can blame Netflix for in this is a really fucking like whack English dub. Like that's the only thing because like
Yeah, because
I mean,
the thing
granted,
is, like, Netflix only just really gives them the money at the end of the day. Like, that's
Really?
really
well,
pretty much
obviously
it.
not enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
I'm
not saying that they're
I mean,
giving
they're
them
Netflix.
enough
they're
money, but,
money
like, what
for
Netflix
the
is doing,
English dub.
they're
I mean,
Realistically, like
Netflix isn't involved in production. They're literally just
yeah, exactly.
licensing it.
They are pretty much they're
I
likely
just can't
part of a production
imagine
committee,
that
but they're not, like,
that
trying
shit
to
wasn't a
control the
result
production
of like
I I
budgeting.
blame I blame
Yeah,
Netflix
yeah.
for Part 6 JoJo. That's whack. I'm not gonna
Yeah, I
put
mean
any
that's
blame on their
fair.
reflections because 1 to 5 are fine, but 6 is weird. You get the whole batch, and then the final episodes are gonna be on December 1. I mean, I
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean
don't like batch
yeah, I mean,
releases
the packaging
for
itself
this.
is
Yeah. But yeah,
yeah.
I really wish some other studio with more interesting ideas would have headed this. Maybe
Yeah.
Gen Urobuchi, or just what I'm saying, I like Gen
I
Urobuchi.
want to see Cyberpunk, but done in puppet show like Thunderbolt Fantasy. I
That'd
just
be
want to
tight.
see like
No,
the
I mean if it's Cyberpunk, it's got to be full CG. You got to do
yeah
full CG. So I mean, Orange would
yeah
have been good.
yeah. Or
Um,
they just give the entire thing to Graphinica or who headed
Aki,
X Arms again?
Oh,
It's-
who the fuck knows? Dude?
Crunchyroll.
yeah, just give it to them.
Let's see,
Yeah.
Exxon. There's
Cyberpunk
that
written
has to
by
be like a
Aki
shell
Kishimbo.
company at this point.
Yeah.
Visual Flight. X-Arms,
Visual
still their
This,
one
this,
property. Will probably always be their one property, unfortunately.
Yeah. What a great show. Anyways, thank
yeah, that's
you,
about it.
Toast.
It's all right. I mean, should you watch it? I guess because everyone's talking about it. It's on Netflix. It's pretty accessible, but
Hmm.
don't tout it as the greatest thing
Yeah.
Trigger's ever produced.
Yeah.
But I mean, did people say it's better than the game? It's better than the game, right?
I mean, that's not really a high bar when you're looking at like characters in the game that are even like less of a thing.
Mhm.
Damn, I can't believe David's more popular than Keanu Reeves.
Anyways, thank you, Toast. And last but not least, Dark. Last words, retrospections, etc.
To get a few things out of the way, well, actually, one I should probably start off with. I thought this is as a full package. I think it's shit. Like, I I think I can fully say with confidence now, after all this time, yeah, it's just bad. Like,
Mhm.
it's got moments of brilliance. Um, it's got a
It's
very strong beginning. Um, and again, where I said like episode 4 was like when I should say like episode 4 was when I started getting like nervous as like time went on and Pillar's death was not dealt with in any way, shape, or form, right? Like by the crew, it wasn't even like, oh shit, we lost someone. Like there was one scene of that, and then it was okay, moving on. Moving on, it's time
but,
to do another job that we're not explaining what our even goal is.
but Dark. That's the deal with the life
Yeah,
of an
that's
edge runner.
Night City.
Life. Ha
Yeah.
ha ha ha. That's
Uh,
why we also had to write out Rebecca, even though she's pretty cool for 3
yeah,
episodes.
that's what I mean. It's just like again, it's like she's gone for 3 episodes, and like as time went on and she was gone, I was like, oh shit, like this is gonna be pretty rough. And then again, then the shit happened with after Maine's episode. Like, damn, I wonder how they're gonna deal with this. And then it's like
And then they
they're
don't.
not. And then they don't deal with it. And it's like, oh, okay, that's great. Like, wow, great to
I
see.
mean, even in TTGL when Kamina died, there was a period of moping, but then Shimon got his cool.
Yeah, and then you had
after
the
that.
end of the series by episode 15, and then they decided, what if we kept going? We drove this into the dirt.
I mean,
To
and
a
that's
lesser
the same
extent.
thing with
But,
Edgerunners and TTGL. It's like, oh boy, that's
I mean, it was pretty much the same thing with Darling and the Franks as well, which is another thing I want to say. Like, anyone at this point, like, what's really pisses me off about the series is that, like, this should have made it evident to anyone that the issues of Darling and the Franks don't rest solely on fucking A1. Like,
But isn't what? But that's if that precludes, not precludes, but that assumes the premise that people found issues with this thing to begin with, which is a big if, right? Because people again were just kind of like,
well, yeah, that's what I'm
wow,
saying. Like, that's what I was kind of hoping by the end of this is that people were like, oh, okay, yeah, this has a lot of the issues that Darling and the Franks had.
yes,
And then it's
yes,
like,
yes.
people are like, no, this is amazing. And it's like, could you at least blame CDPR fully? Like, could you at least blame someone instead of being like, oh, this isn't a studio collaboration, so it's time to fucking like, it's time to open wide and just suck off Trigger fucking 3 hours. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
but other than that, yeah, I think what bothers me more about this series again is that like the fumble pisses me off more than the fucking train wreck, like, or I don't even know what to call it, than like the blowout, right? Is what I should say. Like when you, to use a sports analogy, it's like I would be less mad if I was like watching a fucking game and it's like from the first half it was an absolute fucking blowout and there's like no chance of winning, and it's like
Right. If you knew they couldn't do it,
your
if you
team
knew they
just
couldn't
fucking
do it.
lose. Yeah, it's like it's
Yeah, yeah.
it's over. Like this is fucking terrible. It's like whatever. Like okay, fine. But when you just like have a stride going, and then like
Yeah.
in the fucking second half you just fumble constantly, and you're like, okay, there goes everything. Like it's over now. It's over. Like sorry, gave you hope, and now we just take it away.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. It's very
But
unfortunate.
yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot else to say. I think it's Trigger's. Well, granted, I haven't watched Kisniver or Luluco. I should
Luluco is
get on
okay because Niver
Luluco.
is a little bit.
The
Yeah.
problem with Kisniver. The thing about Kisniver though is like I want to say like, is this Trigger's worst series? Like, is this the one that I would hate the most? Probably.
The
I have my
issue is
gripes with
it's like
TTGL, and that is fucking nothing compared to what I feel about this.
the issue is again, we've had
I
this
at least didn't think
discussion
TTGL
before.
was a waste of fucking time when I finished it.
Yeah, but
Very
we've
few
had
pieces of media do that.
we've had this talk before, and I think Nier actually was the one that brought it up, right? Where it's not like Trigger has. It's not like Trigger starts out like it starts out where it's just like yeah, freaking just like it's all shitty, like all the characters are fucking bad, all the plot doesn't make any fucking sense from the beginning, the themes are all shitty, like we have no writers, it's like we're going full TQ, we only have artists, we don't have
Yeah.
directors, we don't have anything. It's not like that. It's like it has a base where it makes you think, oh, like actual human beings are working on this project, right? But then it becomes again too evident that they are too bought into the idea of being grandiose and aiming for that easy emotional release and aiming for that trigger formula. It becomes too evident. And that's the decline. So it's not immediately shitty and you get your hopes up every time, but then the decline is shittier for it, right? So I wouldn't say that there's specifically like shittiest trigger series necessarily where you're just like oh yeah, this is like because they're all kind of there, you know what I mean, they're all kind because they're all following the same formula, they're all kind of there. So I wouldn't say like any one specific series is like the obvious worst. But I think if I had to say, let me look at this fucking list here. God, what was oh right, brand new animal was a thing. Fuck, Nier, you covered that, right?
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
nothing.
but
buddy.
would you say
nothing-
that's the worst?
No.
No.
Brand new
Um,
Animal is a lot of like nothing. Nothing really
Oh
happens in
fuck! They're
DNA.
covering Dungeon Meshi too. Fuck! I forgot.
they are.
No.
Oh
But
man, who's gonna be the self-sacrifice in that series?
yeah, exactly. Who's gonna go jump into the dwarf spot? Yeah. I think the worst is probably I want to say
Burnout Cop?
Kisniver edges
Probably.
out Frank's by a little bit, but Frank's is down there pretty hard as well. And I think the best is when it's completely like they're forced to create a series that's like completely deviated from their trigger formula, like they can't shoehorn it. So I think when supernatural battles become commonplace, out of the stuff that I've seen, is like the most palatable. I think. Um,
Wow, so you
a
like
little bit of
Hackadoll?
a little bit of Luluco, and I think if they do Delicious in Dungeon, if they do Dungeon Meshi, just if they just do a straight adaptation, that'll I think be their best series by like
If
a
Trigger
solid head
gets
above.
a fucking Kumiko level drama over Dungeon
In
Meshi,
Dungeon Meshi,
I will. It'll just be like a
God,
choir,
if they
like a
ruin Dungeon Meshi,
chorus,
I'll be so
bringing in my
mad. Holy
fucking.
shit!
I
I don't
mean,
know, man.
I will be mad
Oh,
on one hand, but on the other hand, I will be so like
Vindicated.
fucking like yeah, just so like petty, like absolutely like vindicated on that. It's like yeah, it's always been this way,
Shot
fellas.
Schadenfreude, right? Schadenfreude.
Yeah, like just
uh,
an absolute motherfucker.
yeah.
As another one, there's that link I put in chat. Check that out. Certainly doesn't fix the series, but Chinese artist out here making more use of details than Trigger did in the game and in the actual series itself, which I still think is hilarious. And I guess aside from that, I think I probably like Darling in the Franxx as a whole package more than I like this.
ooh, hot take.
Reasonable.
Yeah, and I don't like Franks very much. um, but yeah, I think this is worse for me. But I think I was gonna say final thought, kind of like I don't know. Fuck, I did have something to like very seriously say about it. Now I don't remember, so
Who
probably have to hold
who's
that.
who's a better studio, Trigger or Gainax?
I mean, Gynax. The thing is, like, okay, Gynax is very good at kind of like when.
Oh
First of
man,
all, they stay in their lane, and they are very good at what they do in their lane.
uh,
But the few times, I think, for the most part, right? I mean, like, but the few times that they've like kind of specifically stepped out of their lane, right? I think they did a pretty good job, right? So with like
I
when they're doing
forgot.
stuff like
I
yeah.
forgot Gainax made Abenobashi and Medaka Box. Man, I don't even remember the Medaka Box anime because the manga was weird. It
Yeah,
got weird
but
Oh,
I mean
I remember my thing, by the way.
Medaka Box was fine, but Dentalian was great. Like honestly, like I was surprised it was from Gainax, to be honest, right? And then they've done other stuff like Hanamaru
Wow, you
Yochen.
like Hanamata Kindergarten? What's wrong with you?
Hanamaru Yochen
That
was a pretty
series,
fun
that series was
series.
fun. Yeah,
And
goofy.
Yeah, why do you like? Is this why you also like that one Go series, Dragon King, whatever?
I
I
don't
see where you're going with this.
I don't know. Oh, Ryu no
You're talking
Oshigoto,
about
right? Is that what
Yeah,
you're talking about? The shogi one, the shogi
yeah,
one.
the
I think you're
shogi.
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about.
Yeah, that's
Spire,
definitely what
how
he's
do you
talking
feel?
about.
Spire, how do you feel about Kodomo Jikan?
I do not like it. Also, I don't think that I think Hanamaru Kindergarten takes a very different route from something like
I don't know,
Ryu no
man.
Oshigoto or
I don't
Kodomo
know,
Shikan.
man. That kindergartner's in love with her teacher. It's kind of sus.
Well, I mean, every time a child in an anime says, "If I had the thing where it's like a child in an anime that's
Did
like,
you like
oh, dude,
Usagi Drop?
soggy drop." I think Dark and I had a conversation about this a long, long time ago, right? It's like I'm not a big fan of how it ultimately ended up. Um, but the development all the way
The
up until
journey
the
was
very end,
good.
I think, yeah, it was very
Yeah,
The
solid.
the journey.
destination
was
was just
it was
like,
very yeah.
uh-oh.
The
Well,
journey was
yeah, the ending was not very good.
the
Like even
journey
like
towards it is why I'm kind of okay with Usagi Drop's ending because there's enough character development to like at least
yes,
somewhat
I can agree
justify
with
it,
that.
but
Yeah.
still it's kind of
It's still
Well,
sus.
it is.
the
Yeah.
thing is the thing is the whole like the immorality or whatever the disgusting whatever nature of it aside, right? My major gripe with that end was that it was very flat. It was very like ultimately like it felt like Usagi Drop had the journey like boom 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 episode chapter after chapter after chapter after chapter, and then at the end it was just like yeah we're done with this. We're done with the story.
Yeah,
Yeah, this
it
is
was
ending.
like okay, you're gonna be with this dude. I'm happy for you. The next and then, like it's time skip. Oh, it didn't work out. Want to get it? Like okay,
Yeah. Okay.
wow,
Okay. It's
wow,
done. Yeah.
sloppy
Yeah.
seconds.
But
That's
yeah.
a rude way to put it, but yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah,
So
my
that's
my
pretty much.
clo- my actual closing thought I remembered
Yes.
was, I implore people, for the love of God, if when you finish a series you feel fucking empty, that's not good. I've seen a lot of people say that as if that's a good sign. That's a very bad sign, even if a series ends bittersweet, sad, or otherwise. You shouldn't feel unfulfilled in any way, shape, or form. Um, Also, if when you finish a series, you're like fiending for a season 2
Hell yeah,
because
season
you are
2.
like on the fence about the ending of season 1 or unsatisfied or completely. I've seen people be like, I'm unsatisfied with the ending of season 1. I want like a season 2 with like a fucking rewrite, but then they're still calling season 1 godlike. And it's like,
Oh boy.
you've just described something that you don't like.
Yeah, like you again, I do think it really boils down to, I've said this many times on this podcast before. It's okay to like something, like
Mhm.
enjoy something, and then later on be like, actually that wasn't very good. Like
Yes, sir. Yes,
you
sir.
can enjoy something and then like turn around and be like, that was bad actually. Like that was not
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's that's okay, you
Yeah.
know? You can enjoy things that are not very good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Exactly.
Can't
like
believe you're calling
you
me
can't
out, Near, just
you
because
can't
I love Fate
Stayed
last.
alive.
yeah, I mean, I
What's
don't
it called?
know.
I mean, I don't even last
I mean,
encore.
I
Thank
like
you.
Rail decks. Like I wouldn't really call Index at this point
Yeah, like
very
it
good.
you
Like it's
like
got so many problems.
Yeah.
there are things that I enjoy that I'm like, you know, the writing here is shit. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
good, you know? And it's, like people really need to, I don't know if it's like an ego thing or what, but
They
it's
need to
like
step back.
there are a lot of people that are like incapable of sort of being like, yeah, this is a piece of media that I consumed and I
Mhm.
had fun consuming it. And, you know,
It's a
on
guilty
like
pleasure.
when you reflect on it, you're like, that wasn't good. That could have been better or whatever.
It's
Yeah.
But
this is
you still have to say to yourself that like, it was good. It was godlike, bro. It was so fucking epic. It's like,
I watched it and I sank time into this, so it must be good,
yeah,
right?
this
like
is
just
Darling in the Franks
because,
all over
yeah,
again.
just because you've
Yeah.
invested
Yeah.
time into something does not mean that it was like good or
It has to be
necessarily
good. Yeah.
worth your time.
Because
Like,
else I'd be an idiot, and I'm
yeah,
not an
it's like,
idiot, right?
you
It's like
know,
that's not how that works.
yeah, like sometimes media is bad. Sometimes people
Yeah.
churn out shit that isn't well written. And,
And you can still like it and just watch it. Yeah.
just because you've consumed it and spent time on it and enjoyed your time with it does not like automatically make it a good thing. Like it is
Right.
not a
Exactly.
good thing that you've consumed, but it's like it could still be something that you like enjoy, you like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. And you can still be a reasonable person even if you like it. It's just that you have to admit that it's just not
yeah,
good, right?
like
Like we're all human.
I very much enjoyed the first half, the first 6 episodes of Edgerunners, but
Mhm.
as a product, it's fucking dog shit. It's horrendous. Like awful.
Bro, episodes 7 through 10 were filler, just like
Yeah,
Naruto Shippuden.
But it's just
Never
like,
happened. Pure fiction.
you know, like I liked 1 through 6 quite a bit, you
Yes.
know, and that doesn't mean that like it's good. I mean, it's God, like, bro, it's fucking epic. It's
Yeah.
one of the animes of all time. Like,
One of the animes.
it's not good, and you know,
Yeah.
it's fine to be like, you know, I like this aspect of a series, but this other part is bad, and you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
to be able to do that, to be able to critique the things that you enjoy,
Mhm.
means you will like
That's being
have
an adult. That's actually being an adult, not
yeah,
you know.
and you'll also have a better appreciation of like what it is that you like about, you know, things that you
Yes.
like. Like
That is
being able to
analysis,
pick apart something and say, I like this and I don't like this, like
Mhm.
that adds nuance to the things you enjoy. Like
Yeah.
you can't just like blank and be like, I like this, and because I like this, it's good. Like
Yeah, I mean, you
Raven.
saw me in the Discord during the first 6 episodes. I was like, "Wow, wow, this is awesome." And then on the podcast, I was literally like, "This might wind up being like, this is probably going to be like contender for anime of the year. Like, aside
Yes.
from Chainsaw Man, like what else is there?" And then I
Mhm.
finished it, and I was like, "Oh, never mind, never mind. Gotta run this one
Nope,
back." The
out of
dev.
here.
Yeah,
Near,
it's also
near,
why
near.
my fucking status is Edgerunner is bad, Rebecca good.
Yeah.
Like I think
Yeah.
again, like I think a lot of the characters in the show were literally every character was done dirty by the end. Like they had a lot of really great shit going on, and then they essentially like the way I described it, I think to you, Spire, was I've never felt particularly about a series before where I'm like to the people who made the series, like you don't deserve the characters that you created because you did them so fucking dirty and people
Yeah.
like them and appreciate them more than like
Mhm.
the care you even used in the series.
You're right. Right.
To the point where I'm just like, at this point, it's basically turning into like oh, you made this, I made this meme, where it's just like
Yeah.
we're just gonna take these all away from whatever
Yeah.
the fuck they were trying to do at the end there, but But yeah, I
What
really
about
do hope that people figure out at some point that if you feel wholly unsatisfying with an ending, it might be because it's not very good.
Near,
oh,
you can't,
sorry.
you can't just say that if it's can't like something even if it's bad. That's what drug addicts say, and alcohol abusers. If you like it, it must be good. It has to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, exactly.
I
That's
mean,
you know.
that's also what drug abusers and alcoholics say. So
Exactly.
Yeah, it must be good for you
You
if it
can't
makes you
escape.
feel good, right?
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, thank you very much, Dark, for your couple of words here. And again, that was our Cyberpunk Sidecast Spoilercast review. I hope
So
you
when's
liked
the
it
next?
again.
So when's the next spoiler cast? When's my VTuber spoiler cast? I'm waiting.
What is that?
What are we spoilering? What are we spoilering? But
We've got deets
yeah,
on upcoming drama. We're leaking
yeah,
info.
exactly.
There's enough major
I got
VTuber
prophetic
companies.
vision next big drama.
Yeah,
There's enough VTuber
prophetic
companies for
vision.
us to each.
Yeah, I went on a
More
spiritual
idle drama
journey.
will happen.
Corona
Yeah, exactly.
is a monkey.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, we are going to be doing another podcast next week. Again, this is going to be our first official fall review show, fall 2022 season anime series lineup. Pretty much everything should have at least like episode 2 or 3 out by then, so we'll be able to dive right in, hit the ground running. And remember, this is the Chainsaw Man season, so we're gonna hit that
Never heard of it.
sometime in the
Oh
road.
man, I've
And
never Chainsaw Man better than Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Perish the thought.
Dude, if fucking anyone is out here at this point and does try to like even contest that at all, I'm Jesus fucking Christ, man.
you know somebody will. You say that, but you know somebody will. So, anyways, So next week we're gonna have that, so watch out for that. And if you do like what we do, we stream our podcast every other week starting from 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over at twitch.tv/4PlayerAnimecast. That's with the numeral 4. We might be moving on to YouTube soon, depending on how things go. Things don't seem very good in Twitch land right now. Things seem very unstable, so we'll see how that goes. But
Can't say that.
we can always stream on YouTube if people want. But we do have VODs on Twitch
We can say
currently
that we're not
of all of
monetized.
yeah, yeah. We have all of our VODs, our recordings of the podcast available on Twitch for your viewing pleasure, as well as on YouTube. So check out whichever format you desire. Updates and news on our social media for Player Animecast on Facebook, as well as our handle for at 4PPAnimecast. Again, all with the numeral 4 on Twitter. So check us out here, check us out there. And as always, we'll see you next time.